Chapter 2009. Jiruo, Big Brother has always liked you. Moron-yu couldn't help but feel a headache coming on. He smiled at Jiruo. Jiruo immediately smiled through her tears, but she quickly glared at Moron-yu. Big Brother, you're lying. This is the first time you've met Jiruo. How could you have liked me all this time? Moron-yu couldn't help but feel a headache coming on. Jiruo said that she only had the IQ of a 3-year-old, but it didn't seem like it. Although it didn't seem like it, she was still like a 3-year-old child. Jiruo, your big brother's a bad guy. Come over here. Big sister will play with you. The witch smiled at Jiruo. Jiruo glanced at the witch and Zhu Xiaoning, then took 2 steps forward and hugged Moron-yu's shoulder. At the same time, she looked at the witch and Zhu Xiaoning and said, "You're both bad guys. Only Big Brother is a good guy. I only know how to play with Big Brother, not you." Moron-yu couldn't help but laugh. A child's words carry no harm. Witch, just admit it. I'm not the only one who thinks you're a bad guy. The witch's face darkened, but she didn't argue. After all, what was the point of arguing with a 3-year-old child? Wouldn't that lower her IQ? All right, let's go back first. Moron-yu said, then left the VIP room. Jiruo hugged Moron-yu's arm tightly, as if she was afraid that Moron-yu would throw her away. Moron-yu obviously wouldn't throw her away. She had a great use for him. Moreover, he had spent 2 million high-grade crystals. It was a huge fortune. Zhu Xiaoning sent Moron-yu and the others to the entrance of the auction house and didn't continue. After all, she was an upper echelon of the auction house. This time, the auction had just ended, so there were many things for her to do. After leaving the auction house, Moron-yu felt that he was being watched again. The poison matron's enemy was watching him again. This made Moron-yu very unhappy. This bastard, if you provoke me, I'll directly summon Dongfang Lang to destroy you. Moron-yu said unhappily in his heart. He was being watched in the dark all day long, but he couldn't do anything about it. This made him very unhappy. However, Moron-yu did not intend to use the power of others to deal with him. He was interested in the green thread that could corrode one's soul. Moreover, Moron-yu wouldn't need long to break through to the next realm. At that time, so what if the other party was at the 9th level of the creation realm? He would still be beheaded. Of course, if the other party really wanted to make a move, Moron-yu wouldn't mind sending him on his way. With his current trump cards, he could even kill a Nether Enlightenment realm expert. So why would he be afraid of them? After returning to the branch of the lunar sect, Moron-yu sent the demonic woman away. Afterwards, he brought Rong Jiruo into Hichu Luo Shu. Along the way, Moron-yu learned that this woman was called Rong Jiruo. However, that was all he knew. He didn't know anything else. In fact, Moron-yu wasn't even sure if this was the woman's original name. During this time, Moron-yu asked Rong Jiruo many questions, but Rong Jiruo couldn't answer them at all. It wasn't that she didn't want to answer, but that she didn't know anything at all. Hichu, how do you think this happened? In Hichu Luo Shu, Moron-yu made Rong Jiruo fall into a deep sleep. Meanwhile, he was studying Rong Jiruo's soul with Hichu. At this moment, Rong Jiruo's soul was extremely strange. Her soul was normal and also complete. There were no injuries at all. However, it was like her soul had been cut into millions of pieces by someone, and then these pieces had fused together. They did not fuse according to the original soul, but fused together in an extremely messy manner. As a result, Rong Jiruo's soul was complete, but also fragmented. It was exactly because of such a messy combination that others were unable to read her memories. As a matter of fact, Rong Jiruo herself had made a mistake, resulting in her current IQ of a 3-year-old. As long as the messy fragments of her soul were reassembled, Rong Jiruo would return to normal. However, Moron-yu discovered something strange. There seemed to be a power that existed vaguely in her soul that could not be discovered. It was precisely the existence of this power that prevented Rong Jiruo's soul from returning to normal. Earlier, Moron-yu had attempted to move some of Rong Jiruo's soul fragments and reassemble them correctly. However, this combination could not last for long. It was moved back to the current combination very soon. As a result, Moron-yu was very interested in this. The reason why he had decided to bring Rong Zhuruo back from the auction was also because he had heard about the situation with Rong Zhuruo's soul. He could sense that if he could understand what was going on, or if he could help Rong Zhuruo return to normal, he would definitely benefit greatly. At this moment, in the endless cosmos beyond the solar system, there was a colossal existence, the Rong family. Patriarch, the young miss, has been successfully sent to Murong Yu's side. A person dressed like a butler said politely to the dignified middle-aged man who sat on the main seat in the hall. The dignified middle-aged man nodded. A sliver of worry flashed through the depths of his eyes. Patriarch, do you want me to send someone to protect the young miss? The butler asked politely. The dignified middle-aged man shook his head before saying sternly, "There's no need. Trust in the old master's abilities. Not only will Zhuruo be fine, but she'll even return in normal." If Murong Yu were to hear the conversation between the two of them, would he be so scared that he'd run away? This Rong Zhuruo, who only seemed to have the IQ of a 3-year-old, was actually the young miss of that colossal existence. However, Murong Yu knew nothing about this. He was currently pondering with Hichu what had caused Rong Zhuruo's soul to be like this. However, this was the first time Murong Yu had seen something like this. Thus, he had no idea what was going on for the time being. Since he did not know, Murong Yu naturally did not continue to linger here. Instead, he directly changed his appearance and left the lunar sex branch. When he left, a colossal divine sense swept past him, as if inspecting him. After failing to discover anything, the divine sense left. Murong Yu pretended as if nothing had happened and directly left. However, he was sneering coldly in his mind. It was very clear that the owner of that divine sense was the person who was secretly spying on him. Not long after, Murong Yu arrived at the Milky Way auction house. Very soon, the fat manager came out to welcome him with a smile. "Esteemed guest, is there anything else good to be auctioned this time?" Murong Yu rolled his eyes. He was here to exchange for high-grade origin crystals, not to auction. Thus, he directly stated his objective. The fat manager was slightly disappointed. However, that disappointment was quickly concealed by him. Then, he warmly welcomed Murong Yu in. "Esteemed guest, are you going to exchange everything for high-grade origin crystals?" the fat manager asked with a smile. Murong Yu nodded. Just as the fat manager was about to leave, he called out to him again. "Exchange 1 million high-grade origin crystals for low-grade origin crystals, and 1 million high-grade origin crystals for mid-grade origin crystals." Thus, the fat manager eagerly went to exchange. In less than an hour, the fat manager walked in with 3 spatial treasures with a smile on his face. "Esteemed guest, these 3 spatial treasures contain low-grade origin crystals, mid-grade origin crystals, and high-grade origin crystals respectively. Please keep them well. Also, these 3 spatial treasures are a gift from the Milky Way auction house." Murong Yu received them. After checking them and confirming that there were no mistakes, he put them away in his Hichu Luo shoe. However, he disagreed with the fat manager's words. It was just 3 spatial treasures. The commission that the Milky Way auction house took from the Chaos Origin liquid that he auctioned was enough to buy many spatial treasures. "Esteemed guest, if you have any treasures in the future, I hope that you can sell them at our auction house or buy them directly from us. With a VIP card, we will only take a 20% commission." Murong Yu nodded and left the Milky Way auction house. As for why he wanted to exchange all the origin crystals for origin crystals, that was because these origin crystals were just a string of numbers in the Milky Way auction house's VIP card. They were completely useless. Of course, he would only be at ease if he exchanged them for origin crystals and obtained them. After leaving the Milky Way auction house, Murong Yu used the Hichu Luo shoe to teleport back. This time, he did not even leave the Hichu Luo shoe. Instead, he directly took out the branch of the World Tree. This small branch contains even more power than a top-grade Netherworld origin artifact. After refining it, it should be able to raise my strength by 1 or 2 levels, right? I just don't know if I can refine it. As Murong Yu pondered, he had already thrown the branch of the World Tree into the Chaos Furnace. The chaos furnace immediately trembled violently. The chaos furnace was indeed a treasure that could refine all things. Amidst the violent tremors, the branch of the world tree began to slowly but steadily refine. Even so, the power after refining was extremely terrifying. It poured into Murong Yu's body like a torrent. Instantly, Murong Yu's power increased at a speed visible to the naked eye. Not long after, as Murong Yu's body trembled slightly, an aura that was more than 100 times stronger than before was emitted from his body. Powerful, but unstable. This was because Murong Yu had just broken through from the 5th level of the Bright World realm to the 6th level. At this time, the branch of the world tree had not been completely refined. Therefore, Murong Yu did not stop cultivating. Instead, he continued to cultivate in one go. Soon, his realm stabilized at the 6th level of the Bright World realm. After stabilizing his realm, Murong Yu's realm rapidly increased again. About 10 days later, as Murong Yu's body trembled violently, his realm broke through again and rushed to the 7th level of the Bright World realm. Chapter 2010. Level 7 of the Bright World realm. When Murong Yu reached the peak of level 7 of the Bright World realm, the branch of the world tree that he had won from the auction had been completely refined. It had all turned into energy and entered Murong Yu's body. Not even a speck of it was left behind. The branch of the world tree that he had won from the auction for 11,000 high-grade origin crystals had allowed him to break through 2 levels consecutively. Murong Yu was very satisfied. Looks like I have to go to these auctions more often in the future. Who knows, I might be able to get some good stuff. Murong Yu thought to himself as he prepared to come out of seclusion. At this moment, his level had already stabilized. With his battle prowess that was 1 level higher than himself, his true battle prowess had already reached level 7 of the creation realm. Moreover, if he took out his weapon fragment, even a level 7 creation realm prodigy like the demonic woman would not be his match. Even a level 8 elder can't do anything to me now, right? He wants to kill me. He doesn't have the right to do so. Murong Yu sneered in his heart. He was full of confidence. In the past, his greatest enemy was the level 8 elder Li Jiang. However, Murong Yu was no longer afraid of Li Jiang. However, Murong Yu's greatest enemy was no longer Li Jiang, but other people. He even had a hidden enemy, the colossal existence of the Lin family. Murong Yu wanted to take a look at Rong Zhiruo and realized that she was still the same as before. Murong Yu studied her soul again, but there was still no progress. Therefore, he temporarily stopped his research. The femme fatale soul had recovered quite well with Murong Yu's help. She was almost at level 8. Moreover, the femme fatale had already adjusted her mentality. She was completely like Murong Yu's female slave. When she saw Murong Yu, she served Murong Yu respectfully. It was as if she was warming up Murong Yu's bed. In the end, Murong Yu could not take it anymore and left the Hichu Luo Shu. After reappearing in the lunar sex branch, Murong Yu discovered that many days had already passed. The demoness had already left for many days. After all, she was the holy maiden of the lunar sect, and she was extremely busy. Murong Yu didn't mind, because he was also planning to leave. If he wanted to leave, he could have teleported back to the sun sect. However, Murong Yu did not want to leave just like that. This was because he had yet to avenge the femme fatale. Most importantly, Murong Yu was very interested in the other party's soul-corroding poison. If he didn't take this opportunity to take down the other party, he might not have another chance in the future. After all, the solar system was so big. It would be difficult to find one. Moreover, the other party was a powerful existence at the 9th level of the creation realm. However, even though Murong Yu's strength had skyrocketed to the point that he now possessed a battle prowess comparable to his 7th level creation realm expert, and with his various methods, it wasn't impossible for him to kill an 8th level creation realm expert. However, the other party was a true 9th level creation realm expert. The gap between them was extremely large. I have to think of a way to kill him. Murong Yu muttered to himself as he tried to think of a way. Half a day later, he secretly left the lunar sex branch. In the following period of time, Moronyu constantly left and returned. After half a month, Moronyu openly left the lunar sex branch. Whoosh! Just as he was about to leave, an enormous divine sense locked onto him. However, the other party was very cautious. If it weren't for Morongyu's powerful strength and extremely sharp senses, it would have been impossible for anyone else to notice the presence of a 9th-level creation realm expert, even if the other party was a 7th-level creation realm expert. After Morongyu left the lunar sex branch, he hurriedly teleported away from the pure sun planet. The femme fatale's enemy also followed closely behind Morongyu, constantly teleporting away. Soon, Morongyu appeared on a barren planet. There was a teleportation array on this planet, but usually no one would come here. Suddenly, Morongyu stopped in an unknown mountain range and looked behind him. "Come out! Stop sneaking around." Morongyu looked behind him with a calm expression. However, even after he spoke for a long time, no one came out. Morongyu seemed to be talking to the air. Seeing this, a sneer appeared on Morongyu's face. "Gao Cheng, I'm talking about you. Come out." Gao Cheng was the femme fatale's good friend. He was the one who had plotted against the femme fatale and was also the one who had been keeping an eye on Morongyu. Since Morongyu had mentioned him by name, Gao Cheng had no choice but to appear. Since Morongyu had already discovered his existence, there was no need for him to continue hiding. Thus, after a burst of loud laughter, a tall, middle-aged man stepped out from behind and appeared in front of Morongyu. "Not bad, brat. You were able to discover my existence. I'm very curious. How did you discover me?" A cold light flashed through Morongyu's eyes as he looked at Gao Cheng. This guy looked like an honest man. It was probably because of this that the femme fatale trusted him so much. That was why she had almost died after being plotted against by him. "You think too highly of yourself. I had already discovered you spying on me back at the slave market." Morongyu spoke the truth, but a mocking expression appeared on his face. Gao Cheng faltered slightly upon hearing this. Then, he came to a realization. "I see. If I'm not mistaken, it was that powerful being from the lunar sect who discovered me, right?" Morongyu faltered slightly upon hearing this, but he didn't offer any explanation. It was fine to let this guy be arrogant for a while. The less wary Gao Cheng was of him, the easier it would be for him to kill him. "Cut the crap. Hurry up and hand over the femme fatale, and I'll let you die happily. Otherwise, you won't be able to die even if you want to," Gao Cheng suddenly said loudly. Morongyu shrugged. "So you're here for the femme fatale. However, I have some bad news to tell you. The femme fatale is already dead. Her fate was extremely tragic. Even her soul was completely devoured. How pitiful. I don't know which B** star did this to her." Gao Cheng's expression darkened. The reason why he hadn't killed the femme fatale immediately was because he wanted to obtain the femme fatale's lightning inheritance. However, something had gone wrong during this process, and the femme fatale had managed to escape. When he tracked her down, he finally discovered Morongyu at the slave market. He had initially planned to purchase the femme fatale, but to his surprise, Morongyu beat him to it. As for snatching it by force, even if Gao Cheng had the guts to do so, he wouldn't dare to snatch anything from the Milky Way auction house. In fact, he didn't even dare to make a move in front of the level 9 creation stage cultivator of the lunar sect. He was afraid of offending the lunar sect. As such, he had been lurking outside the lunar sect's branch all day. When Morongyu left alone, he had chased after him. He couldn't take it anymore. The poison that had killed the femme fatale was simply too terrifying. The femme fatale wouldn't be able to hold on for much longer. Now that he heard that the femme fatale was dead, he was given a huge fright. He didn't even suspect Morongyu's words. "However, the femme fatale gave me the lightning inheritance before she died." "Gao Cheng, you want the lightning inheritance, right? How about I sell the Netherworld Realm's inheritance to you?" Morongyu's next words made Gao Cheng ecstatic. Whoosh! Before Morongyu could finish his sentence, Gao Cheng suddenly reached out and grabbed at Morongyu. "It's a pity that I gave the inheritance to the holy maiden of the lunar sect." Murong Yu's words forced Gao Cheng to withdraw his attack. Are you disappointed? Murong Yu looked at Gao Cheng mockingly. His heart was filled with disdain. Very well. I'll let you be happy after I take you down. Gao Cheng despised himself. Murong Yu was only at the level 7 Bright World realm, while he was at the level 9 creation stage. How could Murong Yu resist him? He could just take down Murong Yu and read his memories. Even if Murong Yu really handed over the lightning inheritance, he had a way to make Murong Yu take it back. Seeing Gao Cheng attack again, Murong Yu suddenly sneered. Idiot, you've been tricked. Murong Yu suddenly raised his hand. Rumble, after a series of earth-shattering sounds, the entire mountain range Murong Yu was in seemed to have been turned upside down. At the same time, a powerful and mysterious force crazily suppressed Gao Cheng. In just an instant, Gao Cheng realized that his strength had been greatly weakened, and that mysterious force was still crazily suppressing his strength. Kill! At the same time, Murong Yu let out a roar and unleashed his most berserk attack. Seeing that Murong Yu, a small cultivator, dared to take the initiative to attack him, Gao Cheng couldn't help but laugh in anger. Then he slapped at him. Bang! However, to Gao Cheng's disbelief, not only did his punch fail to injure Murong Yu, but it also failed to injure him. On the contrary, he was sent flying by Murong Yu's attack. This made him very depressed. At this time, Murong Yu had already taken a step forward and launched his most violent attack again. Little bastard, how dare you plot against me? Gao Cheng flew into a rage and immediately increased his strength. However, this place seemed to be suppressed by a large array, and his strength was constantly suppressed. It was obvious that this was a trap carefully set up by Murong Yu. It was a large array set up by Murong Yu. It took Murong Yu half a month to set it up. The reason why he talked to Gao Cheng for so long was that Murong Yu was secretly activating the array. It couldn't be helped. This was a combination of countless arrays, and Murong Yu had deliberately set it up so that it wouldn't be casually triggered. Otherwise, how would he be able to kill Gao Cheng if the great formation that he had spent half a month to set up was triggered by a ferocious beast that had accidentally broken in? However, the array's power wasn't that terrifying at the beginning. Therefore, although Murong Yu launched an attack, he didn't kill him. This was because the array suppression on Gao Cheng hadn't reached its limit. Chapter 2011. Boom! While Murong Yu was dealing with Gao Cheng, Murong Yu's figure appeared behind Gao Cheng out of thin air. At that moment, Gao Cheng's heart was suddenly enveloped by an extremely strong aura of danger. Shocked, Gao Cheng's terrifying strength of level 9 of the creation realm allowed him to react. He took a step forward, and in a flash, he moved forward. However, when the figure appeared, it was too close to Gao Cheng. By the time Gao Cheng reacted, the figure had already slapped Gao Cheng's back with his palm. Bang! Bang! Gao Cheng and that figure were both sent flying by the impact. Among them, the person who sneaked up on Gao Cheng spat out blood. However, Gao Cheng stood still in the distance, as if nothing had happened. Then, he looked coldly at Murong Yu and said, Femme Fatale, you're still alive? It turned out that the person who sneaked up on Gao Cheng was Femme Fatale. Hichu Luo Shu had an ability. As long as the owner, Murong Yu, was within a certain area of Hichu Luo Shu, he could make anything in Hichu Luo Shu appear anywhere in the area. Murong Yu had placed Femme Fatale behind Gao Cheng to sneak up on her. Unfortunately, although Femme Fatale had launched a sneak attack, she had been severely injured. Her strength had only recovered to level 7 of the creation realm, so she couldn't cause any damage to Gao Cheng. Instead, she was injured by Gao Cheng's strength. Gao Cheng, are you disappointed to see me? Femme Fatale's face was pale as she looked at Gao Cheng with resentment. In Murong Yu's formation, she wasn't suppressed at all. On the other hand, although Femme Fatale's attack didn't seriously injure Gao Cheng, he was still injured. However, because of this, Gao Cheng was even more suppressed by the formation. His strength had been suppressed to the level of someone who had just broken through to the 9th level of the creation realm. As long as his strength was suppressed to level 8 of the creation realm, it would be the time of his death. Yes, I'm very disappointed. However, today all of you will die. Gao Cheng sneered and took a step forward, rushing towards the femme fatale. Lady Poison was shocked and instantly retreated. She couldn't take a single hit from Gao Cheng. However, just as the femme fatale retreated, Gao Cheng's body also shot to the side. It was obvious that cultivators who could cultivate to the 9th level of the creation realm were not fools. It was obvious that Gao Cheng's power was being suppressed by the array. If he were to continue fighting Morong Yu at this time, then he'd be a fool. As long as he left this formation, he could kill Morong Yu and the Poison Lady with one hand. However, at this moment, a terrifying aura that caused his soul to tremble suddenly descended from the sky in front of him. At the same time, Gao Cheng saw a black stream of light shatter the void and slash at his head. Gao Cheng's pupils constricted. He clearly saw that the black light was a weapon fragment. However, this weapon fragment gave him an intense aura of death. He knew that if he couldn't block it, the weapon fragment would definitely kill him. Therefore, Gao Cheng didn't have time to react. He had already taken out his natal artifact and used all his strength to meet the attack. Clang! After an earth-shattering sound, the weapon fragment was sent flying back. However, Gao Cheng's mind was shaken. Although his natal artifact successfully blocked the weapon fragment, a finger-sized gap was created by the weapon fragment. His natal artifact was damaged. And because this origin artifact was Gao Cheng's life origin artifact, his mind was also damaged. What level is this natal artifact? Is it a nether realm natal artifact? But how can he use such a powerful natal artifact? Gao Cheng was extremely shocked. His natal artifact was at the peak of the creation realm and was extremely powerful. At this moment, Gao Cheng's face suddenly changed. This was because he suddenly realized that although he had sent the weapon fragment flying, the sense of death in his heart didn't dissipate. On the contrary, it became even stronger. What was going on? Gao Cheng didn't have time to think. He increased his strength again, and at the same time, his natal artifact was released again. However, at this moment, he suddenly saw an uninvited guest enter his soul space. Soul attack. Even a fool would know what was going on at this moment. Therefore, Gao Cheng couldn't help but exclaim. At the same time, his expression changed drastically, and he had already retreated. However, the soul power had already entered his soul space, and he couldn't avoid it just by retreating. Seeing that Morong Yu's soul attack was about to hit Gao Cheng's soul. With the strength of Gao Cheng's soul, there was no way he could withstand Morong Yu's attack. In other words, if Gao Cheng allowed Morong Yu's soul attack to hit his soul, he would definitely die. 10,000 vermin soul poison. Right at this moment, Gao Cheng suddenly roared. Immediately after, a palm-sized bottle that he had hidden in his soul space suddenly exploded. Immediately after, green threads filled Gao Cheng's entire soul. Under Gao Cheng's control, these green threads flew towards Morong Yu's soul power like a fishing net. Pooh! Morong Yu's soul attack didn't even have time to react before it was covered by the green threads. At this moment, Morong Yu's soul power felt like it was being eaten by 10,000 insects. Morong Yu understood why these green threads were called the 10,000 insects soul poison. Moreover, these 10,000 insects weren't just insects. They were clearly ancient beasts. Each of them exploded with a ferocious aura as they crazily devoured and corroded Morong Yu's soul. Moreover, these 10,000 insects seemed to have consciousness. They followed Morong Yu's soul power and rushed into his soul space. It was obvious that these 10,000 insects wanted to devour his soul. These 10,000 insects' soul poison were the green threads that had almost devoured Lady Poison's soul. However, these were much stronger than the 10,000 insects' soul poison that had devoured Lady Poison's soul. They were at least 100 million times stronger. Therefore, even Morong Yu felt that he couldn't resist them. Therefore, he didn't hesitate and cut off his soul power. Once the 10,000 vermin soul poison entered his soul space, who knew what would happen? Just as Morong Yu cut off his soul power, Gao Cheng let out a blood-curdling scream. Then, Murong Yu realized that Gao Cheng's life force had disappeared. Gao Cheng was dead. Murong Yu couldn't help feeling speechless. Gao Cheng had wanted to use the 10,000 insects' soul poison to kill him. However, he didn't think that he would poison himself first. Although Gao Cheng hesitated to control the 10,000 insects' soul poison to attack Murong Yu's soul power, the 10,000 insects' soul poison exploded in his soul space. In the end, some of the 10,000 insects' soul poison slipped through the net. Therefore, Gao Cheng's soul was poisoned to death by the 10,000 insects' soul poison. This guy had dug his own grave for himself. He had killed himself. If he had known, Murong Yu wouldn't have wasted half a month to set up this formation. Wouldn't it have been better to use his soul power to ambush his opponent? However, Murong Yu felt that that wouldn't have been enough to force Gao Cheng to use the 10,000 insects' soul poison. In a situation where his strength wasn't suppressed, Murong Yu's soul attack might not have been successful. Not good. At this moment, Murong Yu's expression changed drastically. He then sat down cross-legged. At this moment, Murong Yu's soul space was filled with green threads. Like ancient ferocious beasts, tens of thousands of insects let out waves of violent and soundless roars. Waves of ferocious aura filled Murong Yu's soul space. Furthermore, Murong Yu's entire soul was wrapped up by the green threads like a dumpling and was being devoured crazily. Murong Yu's heart was filled with bitterness. In order to unleash the strongest attack on Gao Cheng's soul, Murong Yu's main soul had already returned to his soul space from the Hichu Luo Shu. In other words, his main soul was being wrapped up by the green threads. If his main soul was being devoured and corroded, then Murong Yu would be completely dead. Of course, his doppelganger that was completely separated from his soul would not be affected at all. Murong Yu didn't have the time to think about how the 10,000 insects' soul poison had entered his soul space. At this moment, he was completely focused on getting rid of the 10,000 insects' soul poison. Because he had helped the femme fatale get rid of the poison, Murong Yu wasn't very nervous at first. However, what made him speechless and shocked was that the 10,000 insect soul poison was very different from the one in the femme fatale soul. The 10,000 insects soul poison became stronger as it devoured more soul energy. In other words, if Murong Yu couldn't get rid of the 10,000 insects soul poison quickly, he would have to face an increasingly powerful 10,000 insect soul poison. In the end, the 10,000 insects soul poison would completely surpass his soul and devour it in one fell swoop. How miserable! Murong Yu felt very helpless. At this moment, the femme fatale stood beside Murong Yu and looked at Murong Yu with a shocked expression. Although she couldn't see Murong Yu's soul space, how similar was Murong Yu's reaction to her? Murong Yu was poisoned. He was poisoned by the 10,000 insects soul poison. The femme fatale was very anxious, but could only watch from Murong Yu's side. She couldn't save Murong Yu, and even her soul didn't dare enter Murong Yu's soul space to see what was going on. She was afraid of causing trouble, and also afraid that she would be infected by the 10,000 insects soul poison again. Master can help me get rid of the poison. He should be able to save himself. I believe that he can do it. After a while, the femme fatale's expression became resolute. She then sat down cross-legged not far from Murong Yu's side to protect Murong Yu. Chapter 2012. As time passed, Murong Yu's expression became more and more ferocious. Even though he was enduring the pain, femme fatale could still see the pain on his face. In fact, Murong Yu's face and body had turned green. Femme fatale looked at Murong Yu worriedly. However, she did not dare to get too close to Murong Yu. She did not want to put Murong Yu in greater danger because of her. At this moment, Murong Yu's soul space was not only completely covered by the 10,000 insect soul poison, but his soul had also shrunk. This was because a portion of his soul energy had been devoured. If that was all, Murong Yu would not be affected. After all, Tian Yu still had soul energy that could provide him with an endless supply of soul energy. However, the 10,000 insects soul poison could devour soul energy to grow. The more soul energy it devoured, the stronger the 10,000 insects' soul poison would become. This made Murong Yu's balls hurt. Murong Yu tried his best to kill the 10,000 insects' soul poison. Although he could kill it, it was too slow. Before he could kill it completely, or even half of it, the 10,000 insect soul poison would devour his entire soul. Soul doppelganger, doppelganger, doppelganger. Murong Yu roared in his heart, following which, one by one, the soul doppelganger was separated by him. As expected, when his soul doppelganger was separated, a portion of the 10,000 insects' soul poison followed and attached itself to the soul doppelganger. This was because the 10,000 insects' soul poison could only devour soul energy to grow stronger. In other words, the amount of 10,000 insects' soul poison would not change. Hence, as Murong Yu's soul doppelganger increased, the amount of 10,000 insects' soul poison enveloping his soul decreased. Although Murong Yu's soul doppelganger was not as strong as his main soul, his soul was just as strong. Furthermore, because of his soul energy, once his soul doppelganger was formed, it would quickly become stronger. In just a few breaths of time, Murong Yu's soul doppelganger had already split into 97. If his main soul and the Murong dragon were to be counted, he already had 99 soul doppelgangers. 9 was the limit. Thus, when Murong Yu's soul reached 99, it stopped splitting. It wasn't that Murong Yu didn't want to continue splitting. He wanted to split into billions of clones. That way, even though the 10,000 vermin spiritual poison was powerful, it would only be able to divert a small portion of the poison, and he would be able to kill it easily. But now, he couldn't create more soul clones, even if he wanted to. This was because he sensed that he had reached his limit. If he continued to split his primordial spirit might not be able to withstand it and collapse. Of course, even if his primordial soul collapsed, Murong Yu wouldn't truly die. After all, each of his clones was equivalent to one of him. But how could a soul clone compare to the main soul? There were many abilities of the main soul that the soul doppelganger couldn't possess. For example, his soul doppelganger couldn't split his soul. But even so, Murong Yu heaved a sigh of relief. The 10,000 vermin spiritual poison had been forcefully split into 98 portions. This meant that Murong Yu's primordial spirit and soul doppelganger were enduring 1/8 of the original pressure. Devour. Even though there were 97 soul doppelgangers, Murong Yu's primordial spirit didn't seem to be weak because of the number of soul doppelgangers. Thus, Murong Yu's primordial spirit started to devour the soul doppelgangers. It wasn't just the 10,000 vermin spiritual poison that could be devoured. Murong Yu's primordial spirit could also devour soul energy to strengthen his physical body because he had once fused with a soul-devouring pearl. However, it could only devour soul energy. Since the 10,000 vermin spiritual poison could devour soul energy to level up, a part of it was soul energy. Thus, Murong Yu wanted to try devouring the 10,000 vermin spiritual poison. Rumble, a huge suction force exploded from Murong Yu's primordial spirit and engulfed a part of the 10,000 vermin spiritual poison. Thus, Murong Yu was pleasantly surprised. A part of the 10,000 vermin spiritual poison couldn't react in time and was devoured by Murong Yu. Refine. After devouring the soul doppelganger, he started to refine it. What was even more surprising was yet to come. After Murong Yu refined it, the 10,000 vermin spiritual poison was completely refined. It didn't take much effort at all. What was going on? Murong Yu was a little speechless. This was because he realized that the 10,000 vermin spiritual poison looked like a terrifying primordial beast on the surface. But in reality, it couldn't even withstand a single blow. In fact, this was the 10,000 vermin spiritual poison's weakness. Only Murong Yu could exploit this weakness. No one else could. Although there were soul cultivators in the boundless universe, there were very few of them. Furthermore, not every soul cultivator had the ability to devour. Therefore, even if other soul cultivators encountered the 10,000 vermin spiritual poison, they wouldn't be able to devour it, let alone refine it. After devouring a part of the 10,000 vermin spiritual poison, Murong Yu's face immediately revealed a look of surprise. This was because the soul power contained in the 10,000 vermin spiritual poison exceeded Murong Yu's expectations. Just by refining a part of the 10,000 vermin spiritual poison, Murong Yu's primordial spirit grew stronger. As his primordial spirit grew stronger, his soul doppelganger naturally grew stronger as well. As his primordial spirit grew stronger, the 10,000 vermin spiritual poison's devouring speed remained unchanged. This was because the 10,000 vermin spiritual poison was constantly growing stronger. What Murong Yu needed to do now was to devour the 10,000 vermin spiritual poison before it completely devoured his primordial spirit. In fact, this wasn't what surprised Murong Yu the most. After devouring the 10,000 vermin spiritual poison, his primordial spirit grew stronger. At the same time, he discovered that his primordial spirit had been tainted with a trace of the 10,000 vermin spiritual poison's ability. He could feel that his soul-devouring ability was now even stronger. It was even more berserk, like a prehistoric beast. Waves of ferocious souls were emitted from Murong Yu's primordial spirit. This was clearly a special characteristic of the 10,000 vermin spiritual poison. This made Murong Yu a little worried. If he devoured and refined all of the 10,000 vermin spiritual poison, would his primordial spirit become like the 10,000 vermin spiritual poison? Would his primordial spirit lose its rationality and only know how to devour? If that happened, he would lose his true nature. However, Murong Yu didn't have any other choice. If he didn't devour, he would be devoured by the 10,000 vermin spiritual poison. If that happened, he would die without a doubt. Although it was dangerous for him to devour the 10,000 vermin spiritual poison, he wouldn't die immediately. As long as he didn't die, there would be a way to deal with it. Thus, Murong Yu began a frenzied battle with the 10,000 vermin spiritual poison. In reality, Murong Yu's primordial spirit was still stronger. Not long after, the 10,000 vermin spiritual poison that covered his primordial spirit was completely devoured. At this point, Murong Yu's primordial spirit was much stronger. However, the ferocious and berserk aura was also getting stronger. However, although Murong Yu was emitting a ferocious aura, his rationality was still intact. Devour. Refine. After dealing with his primordial spirit, Murong Yu began to deal with the 10,000 vermin spiritual poison on his spiritual doppelgangers. In truth, Murong Yu could have just abandoned the 97 soul doppelgangers. However, Murong Yu was a little reluctant. This was because he could gain great benefits from devouring the 10,000 vermin spiritual poison. It could even allow his primordial spirit to break through and reach the bright world realm. This was a great opportunity. Therefore, Murong Yu wouldn't let it go. However, the 10,000 vermin spiritual poison on his spiritual doppelgangers was getting stronger as it devoured more spiritual energy. However, it was still only 1 out of 98. No matter how strong it was, there was still a limit, unless Murong Yu allowed it to devour and ignored it. In a few breaths' time, Murong Yu had devoured the 10,000 vermin spiritual poison on his spiritual doppelganger. This made his primordial spirit even stronger and more ferocious at the same time. However, Murong Yu didn't stop and continued to devour. Each time he dealt with the 10,000 vermin spiritual poison on his spiritual doppelgangers, Murong Yu's primordial spirit grew stronger and stronger. Therefore, Murong Yu's primordial spirit grew stronger. Although the 10,000 vermin spiritual poison was growing stronger, how could it grow faster than Murong Yu's? Therefore, in the end, Murong Yu devoured the 10,000 vermin spiritual poison on his spiritual doppelgangers in an instant. Boom! When Murong Yu finished devouring the last spiritual doppelganger, he recalled all of his spiritual doppelgangers. At this moment, there was a sudden change. After an earth-shattering sound, an extremely powerful aura emanated from Murong Yu's body. The femme fatale, who was sitting cross-legged beside Murong Yu to protect him, immediately turned pale. At the same time, Her body swayed, and she quickly retreated. From afar, Murongyu's body was enveloped by a green light. Waves of aura that made the femme fatale's soul tremble constantly emanated from Murongyu's body and swept in all directions. The femme fatale could feel that if Murongyu wanted to attack her, she wouldn't be able to take a single blow and would be killed by Murongyu. She was at the peak of the 7th level of the creation realm. Murongyu's realm hadn't increased and was still at the 7th level of the Bright World realm. Master's soul has been devoured by the 10,000 vermin's spiritual poison. Has the 10,000 vermin's spiritual poison taken over Master's soul? The femme fatale's face was pale as she looked at Murongyu, who was shrouded in green light. Her eyes were filled with horror. Then, was the situation as the femme fatale thought? At this moment, Murongyu's soul had successfully broken through to the Bright World realm. It was the powerful aura of this soul that made the femme fatale tremble. However, Murongyu's soul had turned green. From afar, his soul was like the 10,000 vermin spiritual poison. It was filled with violence, brutality, and savagery. Chapter 2013. Murongyu was still sitting cross-legged on the ground, not moving at all. He focused on protecting his soul with all his might. At this moment, he was in a bad situation. In the spiritual space, Murongyu's soul had turned green. Traces of tyrannical, violent, and cruel aura emanated from his soul. It was even more terrifying than the 10,000 insects' soul poison. If the femme fatale could see Murongyu's soul, she would definitely be shocked. She would definitely think that Murongyu had turned into the 10,000 insects' soul poison. In fact, this was the case for Murongyu. It was as if his soul had been taken over by the 10,000 insects' soul poison. His reason was shrinking bit by bit. Once his reason was completely devoured, although his soul and body would still be there, they would no longer be him. He would become a human-shaped 10,000 insects' soul poison. Therefore, Murongyu had to protect his heart and his rationality. At the same time, he had to destroy the remnant consciousness of the 10,000 insects' soul poison. There was no special way to deal with such a situation. What was important was his determination. As a result, a battle of life and death began silently. However, Murongyu was able to grow from an ordinary person to a Bright World realm expert. He had experienced all sorts of life and death situations. His determination was unparalleled. Therefore, although his rationality was caught off guard at the beginning, he still slowly gained the upper hand in the end. The femme fatale looked at Murongyu anxiously from outside. However, the worry on her face faded quickly. On the contrary, there was a hint of a smile in her eyes. She realized that Murongyu's aura had begun to stabilize. The cruel, violent, and cruel aura from the 10,000 insect soul poison was also gradually suppressed. Half a month later, the aura of the 10,000 insects soul poison completely disappeared from Murongyu's body. At this moment, Murongyu's soul realm had stabilized at the early stage of the Bright World realm. His strength had doubled again. With his strength and his cultivation base, he can instantly kill a 7th level creation realm cultivator. Even if the opponent is a level 8 elder, he is no longer a match for me. Murongyu thought to himself as a smile gradually appeared on his face. At this time, even if Li Jiang came out of seclusion, Murongyu did not have to worry at all. Furthermore, Murongyu discovered that after being cleansed by the 10,000 insect soul poison, his soul had become even purer and stronger than before. Most importantly, his soul carried a trace of the 10,000 insects soul poison's attribute. It could devour and corrode. He could even imitate the 10,000 insects soul poison. This kind of mutation was naturally a good thing. Without a doubt, it had increased Murongyu's soul power. Master, you're finally awake? Seeing Murongyu slowly open his eyes, the femme fatale couldn't help but sigh in relief. Previously, she had been worried to death. Murongyu nodded slightly, then stretched out his hand and grabbed the femme fatale. The femme fatale was taken aback at first, but she quickly revealed a faint smile and took the initiative to walk toward Murongyu. At the same time, Her hands were about to undress. She thought that Murong-yu needed to vent after experiencing this life and death crisis. She was Murong-yu's slave. No matter what Murong-yu did, she was willing to do it. Furthermore, she had to serve Murong-yu well. Murong-yu's face darkened. Isn't the femme fatale's thoughts too impure? Am I such a person? He grabbed the femme fatale, not to vent, but to a sinister smile appeared on Murong-yu's face. Then he grabbed the femme fatale in the air. The femme fatale let out a cry of surprise, then threw herself into Murong-yu's arms. In the next moment, Murong-yu raised his hand and slapped her perky butt. The femme fatale let out another cry of surprise, but Murong-yu soon realized that something was wrong. Looking down, he saw that the femme fatale's face was flushed red, her breathing accelerated, and her charming eyes were like silk. The femme fatale's hands were groping Murong-yu's body, as if she wanted to undress Murong-yu. Murong-yu's face darkened. He had only done this to punish the femme fatale. However, it seemed that the punishment had failed, and it had instead become a misfire. Thus, he pressed the femme fatale to the ground. Without saying a word, his soul force pierced into the femme fatale's soul space, then wrapped around the femme fatale's soul and began to repair it. After breaking through to the next realm, Murong-yu's soul force was more than 100 times stronger than before. Previously, Murong-yu was unable to repair the femme fatale's injured soul because of the limitations of his realm and strength. But now, some of the souls that could not be repaired before were being repaired at a speed visible to the naked eye. Seeing that Murong-yu was repairing her soul, the femme fatale finally realized that she had misunderstood. Furthermore, her soul was related to her future. Thus, she officially sat down and began to cooperate with Murong-yu to repair her soul. A day later, Murong-yu's soul force withdrew from the femme fatale's soul space. At this time, the femme fatale's cultivation had already recovered to the 8th level of the creation realm. His strength had increased by more than 100 times. However, the femme fatale's soul was too severely injured, and she still couldn't recover completely. However, Murong-yu believed that with his treatment, it was only a matter of time before the femme fatale's soul was completely healed. The femme fatale had already reached the half-step insight realm, so she had only recovered part of her strength. Thus, she didn't need to consolidate her cultivation at all. Little master, my strength has increased by a lot. Do you think I can push you down? The femme fatale looked at Murong-yu seductively and slowly approached him. At this time, the femme fatale was very tempting. If it were anyone else, why would they need the femme fatale to push them down? He would have already pounced on the femme fatale. However, Murong-yu is not an ordinary person. Seeing the femme fatale slowly walk over, a hint of a smile flashed across his eyes, and then he threw a punch out. The femme fatale's eyes flashed with a hint of seriousness, and at the same time, she threw a punch out, boom. After a loud explosion, Murong-yu and the femme fatale were both pushed back. Femme fatale, how much strength did you use? Master, I used 60% of my strength. You are too powerful. The femme fatale looked at Murong-yu with sparkling eyes, and her face was full of admiration. If Murong-yu's cultivation reached her level, wouldn't he be able to blow her to death with a single breath? Murong-yu nodded. At this time, the femme fatale was definitely not weaker than Li Jiang. Unless Li Jiang broke through to the 9th level of the Blessed Realm, he was confident that he could fight her. Let's go. Let's go back to the Sun Sect. With a wave of his hand, Murong-yu put the femme fatale into the Hichu Luo Shu and then activated the Hichu Luo Shu's teleportation ability and directly teleported back. During this process, Murong-yu took some time to look at Rong Zhuo's soul, but even though his soul had broken through, he still couldn't deal with Rong Zhuo's fragmented and chaotic soul. However, when Rong Zhuo saw Murong-yu, she immediately pounced on him, as if Murong-yu was her long-lost brother. However, was Murong-yu very close to her? Murong-yu couldn't help but feel rather speechless. In the end, Murong-yu finally managed to pry Rong Zhuo off his body after much persuasion, and then he walked out with the femme fatale. After teleporting several times, Murong Yu and the femme fatale stepped into the sun star again. Murong Yu, elderly Jiang wants to see you. Please come with me. In the beginning, no one dared to block Murong Yu's path in the sun sect. However, very soon, a group of people flew over from afar. Not only did they block his path, but they also spoke coldly to him. Murong Yu stopped and looked at them. He discovered that they were actually a 6th rank elder. He must be one of Li Jiang's trusted aides, right? And now, everyone knew that Murong Yu could defeat a 5th rank elder. So Li Jiang had sent a 6th rank elder to capture Murong Yu. Before Murong Yu left the Sun Sect, he could only turn and run if he saw a 6th rank elder. However, a 6th rank elder was like an ant in his eyes now. However, before Murong Yu could say anything, the poison matriarch leisurely took a step forward and bowed to Murong Yu. Little master, why don't you let Xianu clean up these blind things for you? What a blind thing. The 6th rank elder's face turned green. The 6th rank elder glared at the femme fatale. Murong Yu, how dare you bring back spies from other factions? Are you trying to overthrow the Sun Sect? You're a traitor to the Sun Sect. Men, capture this traitor and spy for me. If they resist, kill them without mercy. Before the 6th rank elder could finish his words, a few 5th rank elders, who were already prepared, had already charged towards Murong Yu with murderous intent. It was obvious that they were prepared for this. Murong Yu was so angry that he wanted to laugh. If you want to condemn someone, you can always find a reason to do so. However, he didn't say anything. He just took a step back and handed the 5th rank elders over to the femme fatale. The femme fatale's eyes flashed with a terrifying killing intent. Anyone who dared to harm her master would be harming her. Therefore, she couldn't let these people go. Thus, she made her move. She slapped out with her palm. Bang, bang, bang. Almost at the same time, the 5th rank elders saw a blur in front of their eyes. Then they felt a sharp pain in their bodies. In the next moment, their vision turned black, and then there was nothing. They were all lying on the ground, their lives uncertain. The 6th rank elder was so scared that he wet his pants. Even if he had attacked, he couldn't have knocked out the 5th rank elders in one move. In other words, this woman with a voluptuous figure was stronger than him. Whoosh! Thinking of this, the 6th rank elder turned to leave. However, a jade-like hand had already slapped down from the sky. Chapter 2014. Bang! The 6th rank elder was directly slapped into the ground in an ugly posture. His stomach was full of you. Naturally, it was the poison lady. The difference between a 6th level elder and an 8th level elder was like a chasm between heaven and earth. The 6th level elder didn't even have the ability to fight back. Little master, how should we deal with these guys? The poison lady used her power to form a huge hand and grab the 6th level elder. At the same time, she asked Murong Yu. Murong Yu's face darkened. Can you not call me master in the future? And don't add the word little in front of it? Murong Yu was quite speechless. Ever since what happened not long ago, the poison lady liked to call him little master. It sounded awkward. Moreover, Murong Yu didn't see the poison lady as a slave. In his eyes, everyone was equal. There shouldn't be a difference between master and slave. Yes, little master. The poison lady gave Murong Yu a soul-sucking look and continued. Murong Yu rolled his eyes. He knew that the poison lady's bad habit couldn't be changed, so he couldn't be bothered to deal with this woman. He just said, cripple them. The poison lady's face revealed a hint of excitement. She was the poison lady. In the past, she had killed and robbed many people. However, after following Murong Yu, she had fewer opportunities to do so. Moreover, even if she did, she couldn't casually shout and kill. After all, she was now a slave. Ah, ah, ah. With a series of screams, the 6th rank elder and the other 5th rank elders had their cultivation crippled by the lady poison, making all their efforts go down the drain. Little bastard, how dare you cripple our cultivation? Elderly will definitely not let you off. Everyone looked at Murong Yu with incomparably venomous eyes and cursed loudly. I even dared to kill Li Nan, let alone you lackeys. Murong Yu, sneered disdainfully. You really did kill Li Nan. Those level 6 and level 5 elders, as well as those who had heard the news and came to watch the show, were all shocked. They never thought that Murong would actually admit to killing Li Nan. Wasn't this giving Li Jiang a chance to personally kill him? Moreover, wasn't this guy a little too ruthless? He had publicly crippled the cultivation of several mid-level elders of the Solar Sect. Killing people, crippling their cultivation, these actions were a blatant challenge to the laws of the Sun Sect. Only the absolute ruler of the Sun religion could openly trample on the law. Could it be that Murong had already reached that level? Or could it be that Murong was relying on Elder Duanhan? Elder Duanhan was only an 8th rank elder. He was far from being able to control everything. If that was not the case, then there would be a good show to watch. Li Jiang? It just so happens that I also want to see him. It's time to settle the score. Murong sneered, then motioned for the femme fatale to grab the level 6 elder and strode towards the peak of Sun Mountain. How dare you commit murder in the Sun Sect? This is simply a provocation to the Sun Sect. Watch me take you down. Murong had just reached the halfway point of Sun Mountain when a thunderous voice came from above. At the same time, a monstrous hand covered the sky, exuding a terrifying aura that could destroy heaven and earth. A terrifying aura that could make one's soul tremble was released, instantly suppressing the Sun Sect disciples who had followed Murong. You overestimate yourself. The poison matriarch let out a shout and slapped down with her palm. Puff! After a muffled sound, the monstrous hand that blotted out the sky and covered the earth had already disappeared. On the contrary, a figure fell from the sky like a meteor and slammed into the ground not far in front of Murong. Level 7 Elder. Some sharp-eyed people recognized the other party's identity and couldn't help but exclaim, Puff! At this moment, a figure landed beside the level 7 Elder, and then the crowd heard a sound like a balloon deflating. You actually crippled my cultivation. The 7th rank elder immediately let out an earth-shattering scream. Murong's face darkened. Of course, it was the femme fatale who had destroyed the other party's cultivation. However, the femme fatale was too fast. He hadn't even spoken, and she had already attacked. However, it didn't matter. As long as the other party was Li Jiang's people, they should have destroyed his cultivation. Before this, Murong had been persecuted by Li Jiang's people. If it weren't for his strength, he would have been killed by Li Jiang's people. How dare you commit such a crime in the Sun Sect? A deep voice came from behind. At the same time, an incomparably powerful pressure descended from the sky. The femme fatale's face darkened. In a flash, she was already standing in front of Murong. A large foot suddenly appeared in front of everyone. Then, a middle-aged man stood in front of Murong and the others. Level 8 Elder. The moment the middle-aged man appeared, Murong saw his cultivation level. The middle-aged man first glanced at the level 7 and level 6 elders who had been destroyed. Then, he frowned slightly. Then, he looked at the femme fatale and Murong. His gaze first swept past the femme fatale and then stopped on Murong's face. You are Murong? Do you know your crime? The level 8 elder looked at Murong indifferently. Murong immediately felt somewhat displeased. Although he was the one who had crippled his opponent's cultivation, if it weren't for the fact that the poison lady had blocked the attack for him, and if it weren't for his strength, would he still be standing here? At the end of the day, Li Jiang's people were in the wrong. He had only done it in self-defense. What crime was there? Even if there was a crime, it wasn't something the level 8 elder could do. What crime have I committed? Murong's attitude was firm. He directly retorted, expressing his displeasure. The 8th rank elder frowned slightly and showed a displeased look on his face. He and Li Jiang were both level 8 elders and didn't have any special relationship with Li Jiang. The only reason he stepped in was because he couldn't stand Murong. A level 5 elder was one thing, but a level 6 elder was quite important in the Sun Sect, let alone a level 7 elder. How many level 7 elders did the Sun Sect have? One shouldn't meddle in politics if they weren't in position. Many people only knew that the Sun Sect was the only ruler of the solar system, But the level 8 elders knew that this wasn't the case. The Sun Sect was still too weak, especially when it came to peak combat power. However, peak fighting strength was also slowly nurtured from a lower realm. For example, the 7th rank elder that Murong Yu had crippled had a high chance of becoming an 8th rank elder, or even a 9th rank elder, or even higher. Therefore, he had to stop Murong Yu from doing what he did. However, Murong Yu's refusal to plead guilty made the level 8 elder very unhappy. The level 8 elder's attitude was firm. Killing an elder and crippling his cultivation is a capital offense. Murong Yu, do you plead guilty? By the end of his sentence, his voice had grown louder. Murong Yu sneered, 8th rank elder, are you blind or have you been blinded by a pig's head? Can't you see that they attacked me first? I was just defending myself. Don't you know that they were the ones who asked for it? How dare you? The level 8 elder roared and reached out to grab Murong Yu. The femme fatale snorted and slapped out with her own hand. Bang! After a muffled sound, the two attacks disappeared into nothingness in the void, and the two figures trembled slightly. They were evenly matched. Are you from the same faction as Li Jiang? Or are you also Li Jiang's lackey? Today is a private matter between me and Li Jiang. Don't get involved. Otherwise, don't blame me if you die. Murong Yu said with a murderous aura. His murderous intent had been fully aroused. These people really thought that they were God. What did the private matter between him and Li Jiang have to do with them? How dare they meddle in other people's business? The 8th grade elder was so enraged by Murong Yu that he wished he could slap him to death. However, the femme fatale strength was not below his. It would be very difficult for him to take down Murong Yu. Everyone has the right to punish traitors. Murong Yu, you've gone too far. So what if you're talented? If you continue to stay in the Sun Sect, you will bring disaster to the sect. Therefore, you cannot be allowed to live. From today onwards, I represent the Sun Sect to remove you. At this time, a sinister and murderous voice sounded. Boom! This voice spread throughout the Sun Sect. When everyone heard this voice, they couldn't help but be shocked. Who was Murong Yu? He was most likely the most outstanding disciple in the history of the Sun Sect. It was very likely that he would lead the Sun religion to a height that it had never reached before. But today he was actually expelled. For mere Li Jiang, Murong Yu, the number 1 genius in history, was removed. Was Li Jiang's influence so great? Or could it be that these 8th rank and even 9th rank elders were jealous of Murong Yu's talent? Were they afraid that Murong Yu would ride on their heads when he matured? These short-sighted old fogies. Some of the more open-minded disciples cursed in their hearts. However, there were also some who were secretly happy. After all, no one wanted to live under the shadow of a genius. Compared to a peerless genius like Murong Yu, they were simply trash, completely unremarkable. However, once Murong Yu was gone, they would be able to shine. You've removed me? Murong Yu was also stunned. He couldn't believe it. Logically speaking, his current strength and performance were enough to make the level 9 elders remember him. Between him and Li Jiang, who had more potential, even a blind man would be able to tell. Chapter 2015. Murong Yu's expression was gloomy as he glared at the 2 elders in front of him. Other than the level 8 elder, there was also a skinny old man. At this moment, the old man was glaring at Murong Yu with murderous eyes, as if he wanted to suppress or even kill Murong Yu. The one who spoke about expelling Murong Yu from the Sun Sect was this skinny old man. The Sun Sect was abandoning him. Murong Yu knew that this elder couldn't represent the entire Sun Sect. However, if he couldn't, he wouldn't have dared to say such a thing. He dared to say that there must be someone even more powerful backing him. Here came a question. Was it Li Jiang? Definitely not. Li Jiang was only an 8th level elder. Although there weren't many 8th level elders in the Sun Sect, there were at least 2,000 of them. No matter how powerful Li Jiang was, he couldn't represent the Sun Sect. If this person dared to say such a thing, then there must be at least a 9th level elder behind him. Was it one of those old 9th level elders, or Li Jiang who broke through to the 9th level of Fortune Realm? There were at least 10 9th level elders in the Sun Sect, maybe more. Without the agreement of most of the 9th-level elders, no one could expel Murongyu from the Sun Sect. What was going on? Murongyu didn't know. Who do you think you are? What right do you have to represent the Sun Sect? Murongyu took a step forward and stared coldly at the skinny old man. I'm an 8th-level elder of the Sun Sect. Murongyu, if you don't surrender now, when will you? The skinny old man laughed dryly, then looked at the 8th-rank elder beside him and said, You stop that woman. Wait for me to kill Murongyu. The middle-aged man frowned slightly, but didn't attack. Instead, he took a step back. Convicting Murongyu was his intention from start. However, he didn't want to kill Murongyu. After all, a genius like Murongyu was what the Sun Sect lacked the most. The reason why he wanted to make a move was to teach Murongyu a lesson so that he wouldn't be so arrogant. When the skinny old man saw this, he sneered and said something to the middle-aged man. After that, Murongyu saw the middle-aged man's expression change. He immediately attacked the femme fatale. Seeing this, Murongyu sneered in his heart. There must have been a rank 9 elder who had interfered. Moreover, it was not just one person but many. Although the 8th-rank elder didn't want to do anything, how could he resist the orders of the 9th-rank elders? Unless he wanted to die. Therefore, even if he didn't want to, he had to. Little master, let's leave quickly. The femme fatale worriedly said to Murongyu. After all, they were in the Sun Sect's headquarters. No matter how confident the femme fatale was, she didn't dare to go against the entire Sun Sect. Even if she was at her peak, going against the Sun Sect would be suicidal. Murongyu coldly smiled. How could he still run away at a time like this? Not to mention these rank 8 elders. Even if a rank 9 elder came, he wouldn't be afraid. At worst, he could just kill them. Therefore, he shook his head. However, the skinny old man sneered. Run? Where can you run to? As he spoke, the skinny old man had already attacked Murongyu. The middle-aged man was also holding the femme fatale back. Who dares to touch my disciple? Just as Murongyu was about to react and kill the skinny old man, a thunderous voice came from the sky. A faint smile appeared on Murongyu's face. In the next moment, a monstrous foot suddenly descended from the sky. It was like a pillar that supported the heavens as it came crashing down. Bang! The skinny old man didn't even have time to react before he was stomped to the ground by the giant foot. Seeing this, the middle-aged man who attacked the femme fatale immediately jumped out. He didn't want to attack in the first place. Wasn't this the best opportunity? In a flash, a figure appeared in front of everyone. Murongyu was overjoyed and hurriedly bowed. Greetings, master! This person was Elder Duanhan. Elder Duanhan nodded slightly and looked at the middle-aged man. When the middle-aged man met Elder Duanhan's eyes, he was suddenly enveloped by a strong sense of danger. Immediately, he was shocked and took a step back. At the same time, the dangerous aura floating in his heart also disappeared. The middle-aged man was shocked. Elder Duanhan is only a rank 8 elder. Why did I feel such a strong sense of danger? Duanhan, how dare you suppress me? Do you know that Elderly Jiang has broken through to level 9 creation realm? He has become a rank 9 elder. You openly disobeyed the orders of a rank 9 elder. You're dead. The skinny old man shouted sharply. Elder Duanhan had come to threaten him. Murongyu's heart skipped a beat. Li Jiang had indeed broken through to level 9 creation realm. Moreover, he seemed to be quite powerful. Otherwise, how could he suppress the other rank 9 elders? If the other rank 9 elders hadn't been suppressed, why would they agree to remove Murongyu's identity? Why would they even want to kill him? Of course, this suppression didn't mean that they were really suppressed. They just surrendered to Li Jiang's powerful strength. Li Jiang? Rank 9 elder? Elder Duanhan sneered. However, Murongyu saw a trace of terrifying cold light in his eyes. This old man is finished. Just as this thought appeared in Murongyu's mind, he saw Elder Duanhan stomp down. Bang! After a muffled sound, the skinny old man exploded and turned into a cloud of blood mist. As a soul cultivator, Murongyu is even more sensitive to the fact that the skinny old man's soul had also been shattered by Elder Duanhan. In other words, the skinny old man was dead. So domineering, so powerful. After the skinny old man died for a while, the surrounding people reacted and looked at Elder Duan Hun with admiration. However, the middle-aged man, who was a rank 8 elder, was shocked. Wasn't Elder Duan Hun only a rank 8 elder? How could his strength be so terrifying? The skinny old man didn't even have the ability to resist. Could it be that he has broken through to level 9 creation realm? If that's the case, he can fight against Li Jiang. The middle-aged rank 8 elder thought to himself. Then, his body swayed and disappeared on the spot. He decided not to get involved in the battle between Mu Rongyu and Li Jiang. It was better to stay out of it. Let's go. After the middle-aged man left, Elder Duan Hun also shouted. Then, a strong force wrapped around Mu Rongyu and the femme fatale and flew towards Mount Sunday. After a while, they arrived at one of the peaks of Mount Sunday. The peak of the mountain was secluded, but there were a few luxurious buildings on it. Bang! When they arrived at the door, Elder Duan Hun kicked the door into pieces without saying a word. Then, he shouted, "Li Jiang, get out here!" At this moment, Li Jiang was talking and laughing with his subordinates in the hall. Li Jiang had become a rank 9 elder, and he had even sent out a rank 8 elder. How could Mu Rongyu turn the tables? As long as he took down Mu Rongyu, he could take revenge. Li Jiang had even thought of how to torture Mu Rongyu. However, he felt that he should treat this enemy who had killed his son well. After all, if it wasn't for him, even if he had broken through, he couldn't find an excuse to intimidate the other rank 9 elders. Therefore, he had to thank Mu Rongyu properly. However, at this moment, a furious roar woke him up from his beautiful dream. Who dares to be impudent here? A rank 8 elder roared and was the first to rush out. However, before he could finish his sentence, he flew back at a speed faster than when he left. At the same time, the hall that they were in let out a loud boom and completely shattered. Li Jiang's face was gloomy, and his heart was filled with killing intent. Wasn't this deliberately slapping his face? The power in his body burst out, and the dust and gravel couldn't get close to him at all. Meanwhile, he had already soared into the sky and rushed out. "Duan Hun, it's you?" Li Jiang was furious. Before he went into seclusion, Elder Duan Hun was only a rank 5 elder, and he wasn't qualified to be remembered by Li Jiang. However, after coming out of seclusion, Li Jiang already knew about Elder Duan Hun. Therefore, he had seen Elder Duan Hun's portrait, so he could recognize him immediately. "Duan Hun, how dare you trespass on a rank 9 elder's mountain? Do you know that this is a capital offense?" A rank 8 elder stepped out of the crowd and spoke loudly. At the same time, he reached out his hand to grab Elder Duan Hun. It was obvious that he wanted to show off in front of Li Jiang. However, he was showing off to the wrong person. A cold light flashed across Elder Duan Hun's eyes. He didn't seem to have made a move, but he sent the rank 8 elder flying with a punch. No one knew whether he was dead or alive. Everyone was shocked. Elder Duan Hun didn't seem to be a simple rank 8 elder. Li Jiang looked at Elder Duan Hun with a cold light in his eyes. "Duan Hun, I underestimated you. You're actually a rank 9 creation realm. Why did you hide in the Sun sect all these years? Are you a spy from another force?" A rank 9 elder. Li Jiang's subordinates turned pale. Fortunately, they didn't make a move before. Otherwise, they might be the ones lying on the ground. This Elder Duan Hun really hid his strength well. It was really scary. But was he really a spy from another force? Everyone knew that Elder Duan Hun joined the Sun sect later and wasn't originally a disciple of the Sun sect. Therefore, Li Jiang's suspicion was quite reasonable. The most important thing was that Elder Duan Hun, who did not reveal himself, was actually a level 9 elder, which really shocked them. Even the femme fatale was shocked. Aside from Elder Duan Hun, the only other person present who didn't show any abnormalities was Mu Rongyu. It was as if he had known. Chapter 2016. Indeed, Mu Rongyu had long discovered the fact that Elder Duan Hun was in level 9 of the creation realm. The first time he met Elder Duan Hun in the mission hall, Mu Rongyu did not pay attention to him. He discovered it when he was apprenticed to Elder Duan Han. Although Murong Yu's strength was still ordinary at that time, he could tell that a person's realm was not like an ordinary person. Ordinary people had to be in a higher realm than the other party in order to see the other party's true realm. Moreover, once the other party hit his realm, there was a high chance that he would not be able to tell. However, Murong Yu only needed to look at the light of power emitted from the other party's body. The stronger the light of power, the higher the realm. Of course, the so-called strong light gradually weakened as Murong Yu's strength increased. It was like the light of power emitted by a level 9 of the creation realm expert was very strong and dazzling. However, when Murong Yu reached level 9 of the creation realm, the light emitted by a level 9 of the creation realm cultivator would be almost gone. However, so what if you're a level 9 elder? Elder Duan Han, you condoned your disciples to commit murder, kill people, and cripple their cultivation. Do you really think that the Sun sect is your private property and that you can do whatever you want? Li Zhang's face was cold, and his eyes shone with a terrifying cold light as he looked at Elder Duan Han with a murderous aura. Elder Duan Han's face was also extremely gloomy, and his murderous aura became even stronger. I only have one question. Do you, Li Jiang, want to kill my disciple? So what if I kill your disciple? Li Jiang took a step forward and looked at Elder Duan Han with a murderous look in his eyes. Then you'll die first. Elder Duan Han was also hot-tempered. After shouting, he immediately attacked. He reached out his hand and grabbed Li Jiang in the air. Li Jiang sneered and attacked Elder Duan Han as well. Seeing that the two level 9 elders were about to fight, the surrounding people's faces turned green. One by one, they spread their bodies and flew into the distance. The strength of a level 9 of the creation realm was extremely terrifying. Even the shockwaves of their power could easily kill an 8th rank elder. However, there were quite a few 8th rank elders that directly charged towards Murong Yu. As long as he could capture Murong Yu, he would have made a great contribution. Elder Duan Han didn't dare to continue because he was afraid. He might even be killed by Li Jiang because he was distracted. The femme fatale coldly snorted. She stepped forward and stood in front of Murong Yu, blocking everyone's attacks. Murong Yu stood behind Lady Poison, watching the battle between Duan Han and Li Jiang with a gloomy expression. The two of them were only testing the waters. After all, this was the Sun sect. However, if the two sides were to really fight, then they wouldn't care so much. Bang! In the end, the femme fatale was still outnumbered. She was sent flying by an 8th grade elder and landed in front of Murong Yu. Murong Yu helped the femme fatale up expressionlessly. At the same time, the broken pieces of his weapon appeared in his hand. However, after the femme fatale was sent flying, the level 8 and level 7 elders once again reached out to grab Murong Yu. On the other side, Elder Duan Han was furious when he saw this. He wanted to free up his hands to kill these level 8 elders. However, Li Jiang's strength wasn't weak either. He directly entangled Elder Duan Han, preventing him from helping. Die boy! A level 8 elder had already rushed in front of Murong Yu with a sinister smile. His large hands covered the sky and covered Murong Yu's entire body. In his heart, Murong Yu would definitely be caught by him in the end. However, he suddenly saw a strange smile on Murong Yu's face. At this moment, an extremely dangerous aura suddenly appeared in his heart. The level 8 elder was shocked, but before he could react, he felt a sharp pain in his soul. Then he saw that his soul had been cut into pieces. Pooh! At the same time, he saw a black stream of light violently hit his head. Ah! The 8th rank elder only had time to let out a miserable shriek before his entire head exploded. His life aura instantly disappeared. He was actually dead. At this moment, Murong Yu kicked out and sent the headless corpse of the level 8 elder flying. Immediately after, he pounced on another level 7 elder beside him. He threw out the broken pieces of his weapon again. This time, he didn't even use a soul attack. However, this level 7 elder didn't even have time to react. He didn't even have time to scream before his entire body exploded. Whoosh! Seeing Murong Yu's brutality, instantly killing an 8th rank elder and a 7th rank elder. The remaining elders immediately stopped in their tracks. Each and every one of them looked at Murongyu with incomparably shocked expressions. Murongyu is only a level 7 Bright World Realm, but he could even kill a level 8 elder. Perhaps he had the advantage of a sneak attack, but he still killed a level 8 elder. This battle prowess was truly too terrifying. Ha! Elder Duan Hun was shocked at first, but he soon laughed out loud. Good disciple, kill all these bastards. Okay, today we'll make a scene here and kill all these demons and monsters. Murongyu is also full of heroic spirit and killing intent. Duan Hun, Murongyu, you're giving up too much. You want to kill the elders of the Sun Sect? Do you know your crimes? Just as Murongyu was about to start a massacre, an indifferent voice was heard. Murongyu is furious. What's wrong with these people? Why do they all think I'm guilty? Not Li Jiang and the others? Are they very powerful just because they're in a high realm? His realm isn't high, but killing them is like killing chickens and dogs. Whoosh, whoosh, whoosh. At the same time, 10 figures flew down from the void and landed near Murongyu. Murongyu glanced at them, and his heart sank. This was because he realized that these people were all level 9 elders. In other words, almost all of the level 9 elders of the Sun Sect were here. Duan Hun, you're also a 9th level elder. You should be more mature. You should think for our sect instead of accompanying a disciple who doesn't know the immensity of heaven and earth. A 9th level elder glanced at Elder Duan Hun and said in a deep voice. Duan Hun was furious when he heard this, but before he could say anything, another level 9 elder spoke first. Duan Hun, your disciple has caused a lot of trouble since he entered the Sun Sect. He's really an inauspicious person. If he continues to stay in the Sun Sect, it's inevitable that he'll bring disaster to the Sun Sect. Therefore, we'll expel him from the Sun Sect. Don't mess around. There are many geniuses in the Sun Sect. Which one of them is worse than Murongyu? Elder Duan Hun retreated to Murongyu's side and looked at the level 9 elders with a mocking gaze. I say, are you guys jealous of my disciple's talent? With his talent, he'll surpass you guys sooner or later. But don't worry, his goal isn't the solar system, but the endless universe. As for those cats and dogs in the Sun Sect, how dare they call themselves geniuses in front of my disciple? They're more like trash. The expressions of the rank 9 elders changed drastically. They were indeed jealous of Murongyu. With Murongyu's freakish talent, it wouldn't take more than a few years for him to surpass them. However, they also knew that Murongyu's goal wasn't the Sun Sect. With Murongyu's freakish speed, he only needed to endure for a while, and it would be over. This wasn't the reason why they wanted to join forces to suppress Murongyu, but for another reason. The Sun Sect is just SOSO. Elder Duan Hun sneered, then looked at Murongyu. Good disciple, do you mind leaving the Sun Sect? Mind? Why should I mind? What benefits have I gained since I joined the Sun Sect? I haven't gained anything. All I've gotten is constant persecution. What's the point of staying in such a sect? Without the Sun Sect, I might be able to live a better life. Master, don't bother with these bastards. Let's leave. Elder Duan Hun nodded slightly, then looked at Li Jiang. However, before we leave, I still have one more thing to do, and that is to take Li Jiang's head. Not everyone dares to touch my disciple. As he spoke, Elder Duan Hun turned into a black shadow and pounced at Li Jiang. He was so fast that the level 9 elders around him couldn't react in time. At this moment, Li Jiang's heart was suddenly enveloped by an intense aura of death. In an instant, he was stunned. This was because he realized that Elder Duan Hun was more than 100 times stronger than before. Half-step insight realm. Li Jiang and the other level 9 elders couldn't help but exclaim in their hearts. While they were exclaiming, Elder Duan Hun's hand had already grabbed Li Jiang's head. Bang! Elder Duan Hun sneered in his heart and was about to crush Li Jiang. However, at the same time, an extremely dangerous aura came from Li Jiang's body. Elder Duan Hun was taken aback and retreated in an instant. However, at this moment, an almost transparent hand suddenly reached out from Li Jiang's head. It shattered the void and grabbed at Elder Duanhan. Elder Duanhan was scared out of his wits. He slashed with his hand and stood on top of the transparent hand. However, the giant hand did not move, but was also stopped for a moment by the slash. On the other hand, Elder Duanhan took this opportunity to quickly retreat. "Who dares to kill my disciple?" A faint voice suddenly came from Li Jiang's body. Then, a phantom appeared above Li Jiang's head. It was a cold-looking young man in a blue shirt who was about 20 years old. A insight realm powerhouse. Murong Yu's heart was suddenly enveloped by an extremely strong aura of death. He immediately wanted to use the Hichu Luo Shu to keep him and Elder Duanhan in it. However, at this moment, an extremely terrifying aura suddenly landed on him. Murong Yu's body suddenly froze. At this moment, his thoughts seemed to have stopped. Chapter 2017. And this was only because he was glanced at by that illusory shadow. That was how powerful a dark insight powerhouse was. Just one glance was enough to freeze time and even Murong Yu's thoughts. Even Elder Duanhan, who was much stronger than Murong Yu, felt great pressure. "Greetings, Ancestor Void Sky. Greetings, Master." At this moment, the rank 9 elders and Li Jiang all bowed respectfully to the shadow. However, the way they addressed him was very different. Clearly, this person was one of the 2 netherworld experts of the solar sect, an ancestor of the sect. He was also Li Jiang's master. Originally, Li Jiang was just an ordinary rank 8 elder. However, for some reason, he was accepted as a disciple by Su Tian after breaking through to rank 9 creation realm. It was also because of this that Li Jiang's strength was even stronger than some of the older level 9 elders after breaking through. If he was only strong, the other rank 9 elders might not be so obedient. The key was that he had an extremely powerful master, one of the 2 great ancestors of the Sun sect, a terrifying dark insight powerhouse. In the solar system, a dark insight powerhouse was an absolute powerhouse. Who dared to disobey a dark insight powerhouse's order? That was why Li Jiang dared to run amok in the Sun sect, and the rank 9 elders also helped him. In fact, this wasn't the original intention of the rank 9 elders, but who dared to offend Li Jiang? The young man in blue, Ancestor Void Sky, nodded faintly and looked at Elder Duanhan. "You're Duanhan? You want to kill my disciple?" Duanhan spoke calmly, but as the person involved, he felt an extremely terrifying pressure acting on his body. Every word was like an immemorial primordial star that pressed down on him, causing his mind to almost be unable to withstand the pressure and explode. However, Elder Duanhan was also a tough person. He just stood there and looked coldly at the other party. So what if the other party was a dark insight powerhouse? He still wouldn't give in. Moreover, he didn't even bother to talk about refining. Although this Ancestor Void Sky was one of the 2 great ancestors of the Sun sect, it was obvious that he wasn't a reasonable person. It was impossible to reason with him. Elder Duanhan hadn't even talked to him yet. So how could he conclude that he was such a person? It was obvious what kind of person Ancestor Void Sky was from his acquiescence and even connivance with Li Jiang. Even if Elder Duanhan tried to reason with him, he wouldn't let them go. Since that was the case, why would he waste his breath? However, it would be a pity if they were killed by the other party just like that. Murong Yu, who was standing behind Elder Duanhan, looked at Ancestor Void Sky with a firm expression. So what if the other party was a dark insight powerhouse? He wasn't afraid, because at this moment, he was holding an incarnation sealing bead in his hand. As long as he crushed the incarnation sealing bead, so what if Ancestor Void Heaven was a dark insight realm expert? He would still be quickly killed. Murong Yu had reason to believe that although this Ancestor Void Sky was a profound insight realm expert, it was highly likely that he was only at the first rank of the profound insight realm. Murong Yu's incarnation sealing bead was at least at the 2nd rank of the profound insight realm. Master, this master and disciple are of unknown origin. I'm afraid they have infiltrated our sun's sect with the intention of harming us. Thus, I think we should kill them. Li Jiang respectfully said to Ancestor Void Sky. You're the one who wants to harm the sun sect, right? The other elders sneered after hearing Li Jiang. However, they only dared to think about it and didn't dare to say it out loud. If that's the case, then kill them. Ancestor Void Sky nodded, as if he wasn't killing a peerless genius and a 9th rank elder, but 2 ants. One of the 2 dark insight ancestors of the Sun Sect is like this. He killed them just like that. How did the Sun Sect develop to its current state? Murong Yu couldn't help but find it strange. At the same time, he tightened his grip and was about to crush the Incarnation Sealing Pearl. If Void Sky dared to attack, he would give him a taste of death. However, Murong Yu didn't see Ancestor Void Sky attack. Instead, he saw Ancestor Void Sky's expression change. Then, his expression turned ugly. Don't kill them. Throw them into the Sun Cavern. Everyone's expression changed when they heard this. Even Elder Duan Hun's expression turned ugly. Master, why don't we just kill them? Li Jiang asked in confusion. As a 9th rank elder, he naturally knew what kind of existence the Sun Cave was. The Sun Cave was a dangerous place. It was a mysterious cave on the Sun Star. It was extremely dangerous inside. Even dark insight powerhouses didn't dare to casually go down. If Ancestor Void Sky threw Murong Yu and Duan Hun down there, they would undoubtedly die. However, in addition to the extreme danger, the Sun Cave also contained great opportunities. In the past, there were people who were thrown into the Sun Cave as punishment or took the initiative to train in the Sun Cave. There were examples of people who obtained opportunities and their strength skyrocketed. Murong Yu was one thing, but if Elder Duan Hun encountered an opportunity and broke through to the Dark Insight realm, he would be in existence on the same level as Ancestor Void Sky. At that time, if he wanted to kill Li Jiang, wouldn't it be as easy as stepping on an ant? Ancestor Void Sky only glared at Li Jiang. Then, his figure slowly faded and finally disappeared from everyone's sight. However, at the same time, Elder Duan Hun and Murong Yu's expressions changed. This was because Ancestor Void Sky was extremely sinister. He actually sealed their strength before leaving. At this moment, although their bodies were stronger than ordinary people, they didn't have much strength left. Any random elder would be able to kill them. After Ancestor Void Sky disappeared, Li Jiang was overjoyed. Clearly, he had been notified and knew that Murong Yu and Duan Hun's cultivation had been sealed. Men, throw these 2 traitors in his sun cave. Li Jiang shouted in high spirits. Then, 2 elders rushed over and grabbed Murong Yu and Duan Hun before quickly leaving Sun Mountain. Huh, you 2 bastards want to fight me? You're really too naive. Do you think you can beat me? Li Jiang laughed and mocked them on the way. Murong Yu and Elder Duan Hun didn't say anything. They were really not interested in wasting their saliva on this idiot. If it weren't for Ancestor Void Sky's support, this guy would have been killed by Elder Duan Hun. Bang! Bang! Seeing that Murong Yu and Duan Hun didn't say anything, Li Jiang seemed to have been humiliated. With an ashen face, he kicked Murong Yu and Elder Duan Hun away. Elder Duan Hun was infuriated as he looked at Li Jiang with eyes that seemed to be spitting fire. If his strength hadn't been sealed, he would have killed this bastard immediately. Murong Yu's eyes also flashed with terrifying killing intent. The moment Li Jiang made his move, he wanted to kill Li Jiang. But in the end, he endured it and didn't make a move. If he killed Li Jiang, Ancestor Void Sky would definitely attack regardless of the consequences. Even if Murong Yu had the Incarnation Sealing Bead, he could kill him. But if he killed him, Murong Yu would definitely offend another ancestor of the Sun Sect. He didn't know how strong that ancestor was. If the Incarnation Sealing Bead couldn't kill him, then the 2 of them would be dead. Murong Yu didn't care. He still had a clone, and his main soul was also in Hichu Luo Shu. Even if he died, he could still be resurrected. But Elder Duan Hun couldn't. Elder Duan Hun didn't need to stand up for him, but he still resolutely stood up for him, which made Murong Yu quite touched. Therefore, he absolutely didn't want anything to happen to Elder Duan Hun. Aren't you guys very awesome? Why aren't you talking? Li Jiang didn't stop talking. However, Morong Yu and Elder Duanhun both closed their eyes and didn't even bother to look at him. This made Li Jiang very depressed. In the end, he also closed his mouth and stopped talking. Soon, they arrived in front of the Sun Cave. The Sun Cave was actually an underground cave. From afar, it was just a cave that flickered with traces of light. There was nothing special about it. But when they approached the Sun Cave, Morong Yu discovered that the light emitted from inside the cave was so dazzling. The light couldn't be seen outside because it was enveloped by the formation. Bang! Bang! Morong Yu and Elder Duanhun were directly thrown out. Gurgle, the two of them directly rolled down the bottomless cave. This was because the elders had used a lot of strength to throw them down. Without strength, they couldn't stabilize themselves at all. In the end, after falling for tens of thousands of feet, they finally stabilized themselves. At this time, Morong Yu discovered the dazzling light. How was this light? It was clearly fire. It was simply sunlight. Master, what should we do now? Morong Yu looked at the ashen-faced Elder Duanhun and asked. We definitely can't go up, so we can only go down. Elder Duanhun had no other choice. If they dared to go up, Ancestor Su Tian would probably directly kill them. Since they couldn't go up, they could only go down. There was a great opportunity in the Sun Cave. Perhaps it could remove their seal and even allow them to break through in one go. You don't have to go anywhere. Stay here forever. Before Elder Duanhun could finish his sentence, a murderous voice was heard. Morong Yu raised his head and saw several figures rapidly descending from the sky. Who else could these people be but Li Jiang's people? This bastard! Morong Yu gritted his teeth. Li Jiang didn't dare to disobey Elder Su Tian's order and kill Morong Yu and Elder Duanhun. However, he could send his subordinates to kill Morong Yu and Elder Duanhun in the Sun Cave. In this way, even Ancestor Su Tian would have nothing to say. What's more, didn't Ancestor Su Tian want to kill Morong Yu and Elder Duanhun? Chapter 2018. Let's go. Elder Duanhun's expression changed slightly, and he pulled Morong Yu to escape. He had no choice. So what if he was a half-step to Insight Realm Powerhouse? With his power sealed, he was just an ordinary person. Even a Bright World Realm disciple would be able to kill them, not to mention the fact that the people who chased after them were elders. However, although Elder Duanhun reacted quickly, the elders who were chasing after them were even faster. In a flash, they had already surrounded Morong Yu and Elder Duanhun. A half-step to Insight Realm Powerhouse should be nobler than a level 9 elder in terms of strength and status, right? Today, such a noble person is going to die in my hands. Just thinking about it makes me excited. A rank 5 elder looked at Elder Duanhun excitedly as he strode towards Elder Duanhun. Elder Duanhun looked at him with a pale face and said softly to Morong Yu, I'll hold them back. Leave by yourself. As he spoke, Elder Duanhun pulled Morong Yu behind him and walked toward the other party. However, a large hand pulled him back from behind. Morong Yu's calm voice rang in his ears. Master, you've always been protecting me. It should be my turn to protect you today, right? You're protecting me? Elder Duanhun turned to look at Morong Yu in disbelief. On the other hand, the elders who were chasing after Morong Yu looked at him with ridicule as if they'd heard the funniest joke in the world. Morong Yu couldn't even protect himself, so how could he protect Elder Duanhun? Seeing Elder Duanhun's confused expression, Morong Yu nodded at him and took a step forward. When he looked at the elders who had come down, his gaze became cold and emotionless. Do you think I'm very arrogant? Even though my power is sealed, I'm still so arrogant? Morong Yu looked at the few of them and suddenly asked. The elders couldn't help but nod their heads. They indeed had such thoughts. Looking at them, Morong Yu's face gradually revealed a strange smile. At the same time, he raised his right hand and pointed at the nearest level 4 elder and said coldly, I will kill him first. Ha ha! That 4th grade elder laughed out loud. The others also burst into laughter. They didn't believe Morong Yu's words. However, they soon felt that something was amiss. This was because the laughter of the level 4 elder that Murong Yu was pointing at had stopped abruptly. In fact, the 4th rank elder didn't even have any signs of life. In other words, this 4th rank elder was dead. Was he killed by Murong Yu? Everyone else jumped in fright and took a few steps back at the same time. Each and every one of them looked at Murong Yu with astonished eyes. Die! At this moment, Murong Yu pointed his finger again. Plop! The elder he pointed at suddenly fell to the ground, no longer showing any signs of life. A strong sense of death rose in everyone's hearts. They all looked at Murong Yu as if they had seen a ghost. They didn't even realize how the two of them died, because Murong Yu didn't even make a move. This was because there were no fluctuations of power. Only Elder Duan Hun seemed to be deep in thought. He seemed to have thought of something. Run! The few elders who were scared out of their wits turned around and wanted to escape. However, Murong Yu had already given up on killing them. How could he allow them to escape? Therefore, an even more violent soul attack was launched towards them. Poof! 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 These elders who were at most at level 5 of the creation realm couldn't escape in the end. All of their souls were wiped out by Murong Yu, and they died completely. Seeing that no one was able to escape, Murong Yu couldn't help but heave a sigh of relief. Although his soul attack had reached the bright world realm, it would be more difficult for him to kill the other party if the person who came was stronger. Perhaps they would have escaped, and in that case, there would be people of a higher realm coming down to hunt them down. However, perhaps because Li Jiang had already made preparations, he only sent out some low-level elders this time. After all, even if Ancestor Void Heaven blamed him, he could directly abandon these unimportant middle and low-level elders. It was precisely because of his apprehension that Murong Yu and Elder Duan Han were able to escape. He kicked the corpses of these elders down one by one. Without the protection of power, these people were burned to ashes by the white flames not long after they fell. As for Murong Yu, he pulled Elder Duan Han, who was about to speak, towards the bottom of the sun cavern. Otherwise, once they were discovered by Li Jiang, they would be completely miserable if he personally chased them down. Fortunately, their physical bodies were quite strong, and they weren't burned by the flames along the way. Half a day later, Li Jiang, who was outside the sun cave, looked at the shattered soul jade slips with an ashen face. His eyes flickered with terrifying killing intent. He had sent these soul jade slips to hunt down Murong Yu and Elder Duan Han. Now that the soul jade slips were shattered, the result was obvious. I wonder if Murong Yu and Elder Duan Han are dead. Li Jiang wondered, how did those elders die? Were they killed by the sun cave or by Murong Yu? Li Jiang believed that they definitely weren't killed by Murong Yu and Elder Duan Han. After all, their powers have been sealed by Ancestor Su Tian, so how could they cause any trouble? However, although he thought so, he still felt that something was wrong. However, he absolutely didn't dare to go down to the sun cave to confirm whether Murong Yu was dead or not, because he didn't want to take the risk. In the end, he still left the sun cave and only left an 8th rank elder to guard outside. Once he discovered Murong Yu and Elder Duan Han, he would kill them on the spot. If Murong Yu knew that Li Jiang didn't dare to go down to check, he definitely wouldn't have dragged Elder Duan Han along and run. Now, the surrounding flames even made him feel uncomfortable. In particular, Elder Duan Han was even worse. Although he was a half-step profound insight expert, his physical body was only at the rebirth realm. How could he compare to Murong Yu's peak chaotic realm? Master, do you have a way to break that old bastard Su Tian's seal? Murong Yu stopped and looked around as he asked Elder Duan Han. Elder Duan Han shook his head. Although he was a half-step profound insight expert, the gap between him and a true profound insight expert was too great. It was almost impossible to break the Void Sky seal. A hint of disappointment appeared on Murong Yu's face. Although he could still use his soul power couldn't let him use Hichu Luo Shu or increase his speed. If he encountered some fierce beast that his soul power couldn't kill, the two of them could only wait for death. Murong Yu, if I'm not wrong, you should be a soul cultivator, right? Elder Duan Han finally couldn't help but ask. Although he was basically certain that this was the truth, he still wanted Murongyu to confirm it personally. Murongyu nodded and didn't deny it. Then he looked at Elder Duan Hun and said, "Master, I didn't tell you that I'm a soul cultivator. You won't be angry, right?" "Ha ha!" Elder Duan Hun laughed, and then slapped Murongyu's shoulder twice and said, "Why would I be angry? I'm more than happy. The stronger you are, the happier I am." While Elder Duan Hun spoke, Murongyu stared into his eyes and found that his eyes were full of sincerity without any hypocrisy. In other words, what Elder Duan Hun said was true. Of course, there might be another possibility, and that was that Elder Duan Hun's acting was too good, and Murongyu couldn't discover it. "Master, let's not talk about this. Our first task is to escape from here. Otherwise, so what if I'm a soul cultivator? So what if my talent is heaven-defying? I'll still die here in the end. Master, is there any way to break through that old bastard Sutian seal?" "Break through. Use the sudden powerful force when breaking through. Maybe you can break through the seal. It's just that our strength has been sealed. How can we break through?" Elder Duan Hun shook his head with a helpless look. Murongyu's eyes lit up. He wasn't dual cultivating, but triple cultivating. Sutian only sealed his cultivation. His soul and physical body weren't sealed. In other words, he could make a breakthrough in his physical body and soul. Soul? There was no need to think about it here. Then, he could only place his hopes on his physical body now. Weren't the flames here the best place to temper the physical body? As long as his physical body broke through, he might be able to break through Sutian's seal. And as long as the seal was removed, he could use the Hichu Luo Shu. At that time, if he wanted to leave or continue looking for opportunities here, wouldn't it be up to him? "Master, I plan to break through my physical body here. I hope I can break through that old bastard Sutian seal. However, I haven't reached my limit here. I need to continue deeper." Elder Duan Hun only nodded and went down first. Murongyu didn't say anything as he strode down the stairs. However, a day later, Elder Duan Hun stopped with a helpless expression. "Murongyu, this is the limit of your master's abilities. You can go down by yourself. I'll cultivate here." "Then be careful, master. I'm going down." Murongyu warned and continued to go deeper. The deeper he went, the higher the temperature of the flames. However, everything in the sun cave wasn't melted by the flames. As for Murongyu, an outsider, even his skin was roasted. However, he wouldn't stop until he reached his limit. This was because he didn't know when Li Jiang would rush down and end him with a palm strike. It wasn't until 5 days later that Murongyu reached the limit he could endure. Then he found a place to sit down cross-legged and began to temper his physical body with all his might. Chapter 2019. The Sun Cave was like a gigantic, bottomless cave. The deeper one went, the larger the Sun Cave became, and the more terrifying the flames became. At that moment, Murongyu was sitting cross-legged on the ground, his entire body enveloped by white flames. From afar, one could not even see his existence. Streaks of flames containing frightening power bombarded Murongyu's body continuously. At that moment, all his clothes had been burned to ashes. He was completely naked, and his skin had been charred, emitting a tempting smell of meat. Murongyu's expression was somewhat pained, but his expression was resolute as he continued. The power of the flames was extremely terrifying. If it were anyone else, even if they were at the peak of the creation realm, they would have been burned to ashes. However, Murongyu bathed in the flames and even devoured them. In his dantian, the billions of roots of the tree of life were constantly trembling. Every moment, it devoured a huge amount of chaotic energy from the endless chaos. Then, the tree of life transformed it into the power of life, which then exploded and washed over Murongyu's body, healing his burned body. It was also because of the power of life that Murongyu's body could remain intact. However, his body was experiencing the process of death and rebirth at every moment. It was also because of the continuous death and rebirth that his body became stronger and stronger. He did not know how long had passed. Perhaps it was a day, or perhaps it was a year. On this day, Moronyu felt that his body was finally about to break through. At that moment, the power stored in his body was enough for his body to break through. I hope this breakthrough can break through the seal of the power of the void. Otherwise, I'll have to wait until I break through to the creation realm to break through the seal. Moronyu thought in his heart and growled at the same time. An incomparably powerful suction force suddenly erupted from his body. In an instant, the surrounding flames began to crazily churn like raging waves. Then, they rapidly surged towards Moronyu. Moronyu let out a shrill scream. His entire body was rapidly being roasted by the flames. First, his skin was instantly burned off, followed by the layer of flesh inside. If this continued, Moronyu's entire body would be completely burned in less than a breath's time. Even his soul could not escape. However, at that moment, Moronyu's body shook violently. An aura that was countless times stronger than before suddenly emanated from his body. The skin and flesh that had been burned off was instantly regenerated. From afar, Moronyu's body was emitting wisps of white flames from the inside out, like the flames in the sun cave. His body seemed to have fused with the flames. The surrounding flames were still densely packed, but they couldn't harm Moronyu in the slightest. He stood there motionlessly, but his skin was sparkling and translucent, flickering with a faint light. I finally broke through the seal. Moronyu's face was full of smiles. His body had successfully broken through and reached the bright world realm. His physical strength was at least 100 times stronger than before. If combined with his soul and cultivation, Moronyu's strength would soar again. He had a feeling that if he were to meet an 8th rank elder again, he would be able to kill him with a single punch. This was his current strength. This was the benefit of cultivating 3 things. These flames can actually be refined. If I can use the primal chaos furnace to refine a large amount of these flames, perhaps I can break through. My current realm is still too weak. That old bastard Su Tian bullied me. Once I break through to the creation realm, it will be the time of your death. Moronyu's killing intent soared. However, he did not continue to go deeper. Instead, he soared into the air and flew back the way he came. Elder Duan Hun was still above. Without his power, Elder Duan Hun was too weak. Moronyu had to put him into the Hichu Luo Shu first. Otherwise, it was very likely that he would die. Soon, Moronyu returned to the place where Elder Duan Hun was cultivating. Then, he heaved a sigh of relief. Elder Duan Hun was still cultivating. Nothing had happened. In fact, there didn't seem to be any fierce beasts in the sun cave. This was because Moronyu had never encountered a fierce beast. The reason why the people of the Sun sect turned pale at the mention of a tiger was probably because of his sun fire. When Moronyu approached him, Elder Duan Hun opened his eyes as he sensed something. However, his face was filled with vigilance. However, after seeing Moronyu, he slowly stood up and asked with joy, "Moronyu, you successfully broke through the seal?" The reason why he asked this was because before Moronyu left, he had said that he would not return before breaking through the seal. Moronyu nodded and appeared behind Elder Duan Hun. Then, he slapped his hands directly on Elder Duan Hun's body. Power surged into Elder Duan Hun's body like stormy waves. But in the next moment, his power disappeared without a trace like a clay ox entering the sea. Moronyu's face was a little ugly. The reason for this was because of Su Tian's seal. Elder Duan Hun shook his head and said helplessly, "Don't waste your power. Su Tian's seal requires at least the insight realm to open. Although you are powerful, you are still far from the insight realm." Moronyu didn't give up and tried a few more times, but he still couldn't break Su Tian's seal. In the end, he reluctantly stopped. Why was his seal broken so easily? It was because Su Tian saw that his cultivation was too low, so he just casually sealed it. However, Elder Duan Hun was originally a half-step insight realm cultivator, so he would definitely seal it with all his strength. Then I'll think of a way in the future. Murong sighed helplessly. His current strength was still too weak. He couldn't even open a seal. In the end, Murong put Elder Duan Hun into the Hichu Luo Shu. Elder Duan Hun didn't resist at all. Although he was a half-step insight realm cultivator, he didn't have the self-esteem of ordinary people. If it was someone else, they probably wouldn't enter Murong's treasure space, even if they were beaten to death. Many people say that in addition to great danger, there are also great opportunities below the Sun Cave. I want to see what opportunities there are. After putting Elder Duan Hun into the Hichu Luo Shu, Murong used his speed and directly jumped down. The deeper the Sun Cave went, the larger the space became. It was like an overturned funnel. The flames also became more and more terrifying. However, Murong's body had used flames to temper his body. After breaking through, his body had gained a certain level of resistance to these flames. Or rather, it was immunity. In addition, he had already recovered his strength. He dived down at an extremely fast speed. In the blink of an eye, he had already swept past the place where he had been cultivating. All of a sudden, Murong stopped. That was because he found a shiny object beside him. In the Sun Cave, there were dazzling flames everywhere. The power of ordinary things was directly covered up and not conspicuous at all. However, this fist-sized shiny object was as conspicuous as a firefly in the dark. Therefore, Murong was able to discover its existence with a single glance. It was just a fist-sized crystal that was flickering with a dazzling white light. It was close to being transparent. From afar, this crystal looked like an essence crystal. This is definitely an essence crystal, but it's not an ordinary essence crystal. Murong held the crystal in his hand, but found that this crystal was extremely heavy. It was at least 10,000 times heavier than a high-grade essence crystal of the same size. In fact, Murong even felt that the power contained in this crystal was more than 10,000 times stronger than a high-grade essence crystal of the same size. Could this be the legendary Supreme-Grade Essence Crystal or Supreme-Grade Essence Crystal? Murong thought to himself. With a flash, he had already entered the Hichu Luo Shu. Sun Crystal. Murong held the crystal in his hand. Before he even got close to Elder Duan Hun, he already heard Elder Duan Hun's exclamation. This is a sun crystal? What's its use? Murong sized up the sun crystal in his hand. Whether it was a sun crystal or a moon crystal, as long as it was in his hands, it would be refined by him. Sun crystals are the same as essence crystals. They are directly absorbed. Moreover, the power contained in sun crystals is even greater and purer. Using sun crystals to cultivate can achieve twice the results with half the effort. Most importantly, sun crystals contain a trace of the essence of the sunfire. If you can comprehend the essence of the sunfire, then your attacks will carry the sunfire, which is the flame in the Sun Cave. Elder Duan Hun explained excitedly. After hearing Elder Duan Hun's explanation, Murong was a little dispirited. These things were not very attractive to him. Although the sun fire was powerful, it was only a type of energy derived from the chaos energy. As for the effect of achieving twice the results with half the effort, these were even less attractive to Murong. He refined them directly. What he needed was a huge amount of power. However, the power contained in this sun crystal was extremely huge, and it was exactly what he needed. Moreover, although he was interested in achieving twice the results with half the effort and being able to comprehend the sunfire, there were still many people behind him. Zhao, Jiqing, Murong Xian, and the others all needed it. Therefore, Murong decided to find more sun crystals. However, before he left, he tossed this sun crystal to Elder Duan Hun. Elder Duan Hun was stunned. Murong, you're giving it to me just like that? Although this sun crystal looks like the lowest grade sun crystal, there are too few sun crystals after all. Moreover, your cultivation level is lower, so you should use it. Murong faintly smiled. Master, I have a premonition that I'll find even more sun crystals. When the last word was said, Murong had already left Hichu Luo Shu. Meanwhile, Elder Duan Hun put away the sun crystal with a complicated expression. Chapter 2020. Most of the time, feelings were inaccurate, just like Morong Yu's feelings. After obtaining the first sun crystal, Morong Yu had a feeling that he would soon find a second or even more sun crystals. However, after many days, he did not even find a second sun crystal, let alone more sun crystals. This made Morong Yu feel slightly dejected. He finally understood how precious the sun crystal was. If the sun crystal were to be spread, it would not be comparable to ordinary treasures, even if it was not as precious as a crystal core. Over the past few days, Morong Yu had practically searched the area near where the sun crystal was found. At the same time, he dived even deeper. However, he still did not find anything. Forget it. There are very few sun crystals in the first place. I'm already lucky to find one. On this day, Morong Yu finally gave up on searching for sun crystals. Instead, he focused on diving deeper. After more than a month, Morong Yu did not know how deep he had dived. Anyway, it was very, very deep. At the place where he appeared, even his physical body was close to its limit. This was also because Morong Yu had used all his strength and taken out all kinds of treasures. Morong Yu estimated that the place he was at was close to the core of the sun star. Even an ordinary profound underworld realm powerhouse might not be able to reach this deep. In that case, did this mean that Morong Yu was stronger than a profound underworld realm powerhouse? Actually, that was not the case. The reason why Morong Yu could run rampant here was because of his physical body. Originally, his physical body was able to break through to its current level because of the tempering of the sun fire. Therefore, after he broke through, his physical body had a certain resistance to the sun fire, or even immunity. Moreover, while diving, Morong Yu was constantly using the sun fire to temper his physical body. Although his physical body had not broken through, it was much stronger than when it had just broken through. The stronger one's physical body was, the stronger one's resistance to the sun fire would be. It was precisely because of these various factors that Morong Yu was able to roam freely through places that ordinary Nether Enlightenment realm experts were unable to enter. My physical body has already reached its limits. If I were to continue diving down, my physical body would definitely break apart. Morong Yu came to a stop and thought to himself, should we leave now or continue cultivating here? Morong Yu was somewhat hesitant. Hichu Luoshu's teleportation ability still existed. As long as Morong Yu entered Hichu Luoshu, he would be able to leave. However, if he stayed behind, his physical body would not be able to continue breaking through. This was not because his cultivation level was too low. Instead, it was because his physical body had developed resistance and immunity to the sunfire here. Therefore, the refining effect of the sunfire on him was getting weaker and weaker. If he wanted his physical body to continue breaking through, it would take a very long time. Although the sunfire was powerful enough, Morong Yu had also tried to refine it with the chaos furnace. For some reason, after being refined, the sunfire's power became extremely weak, and it was not suitable to directly devour and refine it at all. In other words, if Morong Yu continued to stay here, there would be no benefits at all. However, what about the so-called opportunity? Where was it? Didn't they say that some people's strength would skyrocket after entering the sun cave? Could it be that their so-called opportunity was obtaining the sun crystals? After absorbing the sun crystals, their strength would skyrocket? The more Morong Yu thought about it, the more he felt that it was possible. Therefore, he prepared to leave. However, just as he was about to leave, his expression changed slightly. The aura of the sun crystals? Morong Yu looked at the 3 sun crystals in his hand with a strange expression. He had obtained 4 sun crystals in the few months he had been in the sun cave. Apart from the first sun crystal that he had seen, the other 3 sun crystals were all sensed by him. Strictly speaking, Morong Yu was the one who smelled it. He had smelled the sun crystals. It's just a little below. I should be able to go down. Morong Yu stood on the spot and seriously sensed for a moment. The faintly discernible sun crystal was not far below him. At this moment, Murong Yu's physical body had already reached its limit. If he continued to go deeper, he was afraid that he would not be able to withstand it. However, Murong Yu gritted his teeth and finally went down. However, he was very careful. The moment he sensed that something was wrong, he would immediately rush into the Hichu Luo Shu and teleport away. After going down about 10,000 kilometers, Murong Yu really could not withstand it anymore. The pressure was too great, and his physical body was already in danger of collapsing. However, the aura of the sun crystals was getting stronger and stronger. Moreover, Murong Yu could also sense that there was not just one sun crystal below, but two, or even more. For the sun crystals, Murong Yu was going to risk it all. In any case, his main soul was in the Hichu Luo Shu. Even if his physical body was shattered, he would not die. Therefore, Murong Yu continued to dive down. Devour. Murong Yu gritted his teeth and directly began to devour a sun crystal in his hand. Rumble, pure and incomparably huge energy immediately gushed out from Murong Yu's hand. Then, it flowed along his arm and rushed into Murong Yu's body like a torrent. Wherever the energy passed, it formed a warm current, which made Murong Yu feel comfortable. At the same time, the energy of the sun crystal also made Murong Yu's strength a little stronger. As he grew stronger, his resistance naturally grew stronger as well. Therefore, he took a step forward and then took a few more steps forward. Swish! The unique energy of the sun crystal almost blinded Murong Yu's eyes. As far as the eye could see, Murong Yu saw at least a few dozen fist-sized sun crystals. This was already a huge amount of sun crystals. Without any hesitation, Murong Yu took out the remaining 2 sun crystals and directly began to devour them. Murong Yu, who was devouring the sun crystals, suddenly realized that a portion of the sun crystal's energy had entered his meridians and become a part of his strength. Another portion of the sun crystal's energy had entered his physical body. After being tempered by the sun crystal's energy, his physical body, which had already stopped growing, was actually strengthened a little. Although it was only a little, it was still an improvement. So that's how it is. If it was an ordinary cultivator, their physical body would not even reach the rebirth state. Then, after devouring the sun crystal, their cultivation and physical body would be strengthened. Therefore, their strength would skyrocket. This is their so-called opportunity. Murong Yu thought to himself. However, his speed was not slow, and he had already rushed forward. Rumble, the terrifying sun fire continued to burn Murong Yu's physical body. Even the various treasures could not resist the sun fire's invasion. Under the attack of the sun fire, Murong Yu could clearly see that his physical body was collapsing at an extremely terrifying speed. He was still not strong enough. However, Murong Yu did not have time to think so much. He reached out with his large hand and grabbed at the sun crystals. At the very least, he had to get these dozens of sun crystals so that this trip would not be in vain. There's more inside. After Murong Yu collected the dozens of sun crystals, he discovered that there was a small cave that could only allow one person to pass through at a time. The inside of the cave was still flashing with the sun crystal's light. Murong Yu only hesitated for a moment. Then he took out 3 more sun crystals and quickly absorbed them. At this time, the 3 sun crystals from before had all been absorbed. Let's go in and take a look. Murong Yu's adventurous spirit had always been very strong. It was also because of his constant adventurous spirit that he was where he was today. Therefore, he turned into a stream of light and rushed into the cave. After rushing into the cave, he saw some sun crystals scattered on the cave walls. And the deeper he went, the more intense the light emitted by the sun crystals. In other words, there were more and more sun crystals inside. Murong Yu gritted his teeth. While madly absorbing the sun crystals, he quickly collected the sun crystals that he saw. After a few breaths of time, he had already collected a few hundred sun crystals. However, the sun crystals that he had absorbed had also increased by a few dozen. However, the power of a few dozen sun crystals was still unable to allow Murong Yu's cultivation to break through. He was still at the 7th level of the Bright World realm. However, his physical body's resistance to the sunfire was getting stronger and stronger. His immunity was also getting stronger and stronger. Moreover, as Moronyu continued to go deeper, he discovered that the sunfire was getting weaker and weaker. Finally, after he collected more than 1,000 sun crystals, the sunfire here was so weak that it could no longer cause much pressure to Moronyu. This is simply a sun crystal mine. Moronyu couldn't help but laugh. More than 1,000 sun crystals were probably enough for him to break through to the next level. There were still sun crystals in the cave, and the density was much higher than before. It was as if he could grab a few sun crystals with a single slap. Therefore, Moronyu continued to collect sun crystals. After collecting a few hundred sun crystals, Moronyu's eyes suddenly opened up. A huge space suddenly appeared in front of him. This is a real sun crystal mine. Looking at the countless sun crystals that were shining brightly in front of him, Luo Yunyang couldn't help but exclaim. Even someone as tough as Moronyu couldn't help but exclaim. At a glance, there were fist-sized sun crystals everywhere. A conservative estimate was that there were at least 10 million of them. What did 10 million sun crystals mean? Once this sun crystal mine was discovered, it wouldn't just be the Sun sect. Even a Milky Way auction house, or even more powerful forces, would make a move to snatch this sun crystal mine. It couldn't be helped. This sun crystal mine was simply too shocking. However, this sun crystal mine was right under the Sun sect ground, yet no one had discovered it. Only Moronyu had discovered it. From then on, this sun crystal mine would follow Moronyu's surname. If Su Tian knew about this, I wonder if he would vomit blood from anger? If he didn't throw himself in, how would I have discovered this sun crystal mine? Moronyu sneered in his heart. Chapter 2021. With one step, Moronyu appeared in the sun crystal mine. Moronyu couldn't hide his excitement as he looked at the seemingly endless amount of sun crystals. At this moment, he even had the urge to immediately sit down and cultivate. However, Moronyu felt that something was wrong. However, when he sensed it carefully, he could not tell what was wrong. Because of the 9 syllables mantra, Moronyu's senses were extremely sharp. For example, he had the feeling that he could find more sun crystals earlier. Although it took him a long time to find the sun crystal mine, it proved that Moronyu's senses were not wrong. Most of the time, Moronyu believed his senses. Since entering the sun crystal mine would make him feel that something was wrong, Moronyu naturally had to be careful. Therefore, he forcibly resisted the tempting idea of cultivating here and began to quickly collect the sun crystals. Whoosh, whoosh, whoosh. Under Moronyu's all-out effort, hundreds of sun crystals were collected into the Hichu Luoshu in every instant. Soon, a few breaths' time passed, and Moronyu had already collected thousands of sun crystals. If he took this out, he would definitely be a millionaire in the solar system. However, this number of sun crystals was just a drop in the bucket for the sun crystal mine. Continue. Suddenly, just as Moronyu continued to collect the sun crystals, an extremely strong aura of death suddenly appeared in his mind. Before Moronyu had time to change his expression, an extremely strong aura, which made his soul tremble, suddenly shot out from the depths of the sun crystal mine and suppressed him directly. Whoosh! Moronyu was very decisive. He immediately gave up on continuing to collect the sun crystals and retreated rapidly. Bang! Just as he retreated, the terrifying aura had already bombarded the place where he was originally standing, creating a huge pit in the extremely hard ground. Whoosh! 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 Even so, Moronyu did not stop and continued to retreat. This was because the aura of death in his heart did not weaken because of his retreat. On the contrary, it grew stronger and stronger. Rumble! Right at this moment, a huge, glossy claw abruptly broke the space from deep inside the sun crystal mine and reached over. His speed far surpassed Moronyu's. At the same time that the giant claw appeared, Moronyu's death aura rose to the limit. a dark insight expert. Murong Yu's expression changed once more. He could feel how terrifying this claw was. Even Void Sky wouldn't be a match for this claw. The owner of this giant claw was at least a terrifying existence at the second stage of the profound insight realm. Explode. Murong Yu's face was ashen, but he decisively crushed one of the 3 incarnation sealing pearls he had obtained from Lindsay. Boom! After the incarnation sealing pearl was crushed, an aura that was not inferior to or even more terrifying than the giant claw suddenly erupted. At the same time, Murong Yu saw the phantom of an old man appear in front of him. After the old man appeared, he immediately turned his head and looked deeply at Murong Yu. Then, he turned around to look at the giant claw that was slapping over and punched out. After being glanced at by the phantom, Murong Yu's heart immediately surged with an extremely intense aura of danger. However, he did not have time to think about what was going on. His figure flashed, and he had already charged into the Hichu Luo Shu. In the next moment, the Hichu Luo Shu directly teleported away. At the same time, Murong Yu, who was in the Hichu Luo Shu, even felt an earth-shattering explosion coming from the Sun Crystal Mine. A terrifying power swept over, and even this space was almost shattered into nothingness. Just after Murong Yu crushed the incarnation sealing pearl in a behemoth far away from the solar system, the Lin family, an old man suddenly opened his eyes, and then 2 terrifying gazes flashed across his eyes. Someone actually crushed the incarnation sealing pearl? This person must be the murderer who killed Lin Zhe. He's actually in the solar system? Someone in the solar system dares to kill someone from the Lin family? That's too presumptuous. The old man laughed coldly, and his figure flashed and disappeared from the spot. There's actually a terrifying beast hidden in the Sun Crystal Mine that's at least level 2 of the Insight Realm. In the Hichu Luo Shu, Murong Yu's face was still in shock. At this moment, Hichu Luo Shu had already left the sun. However, when he thought about the moment of life and death, he was still a little frightened. If he did not have the incarnation sealing pearl, he would have been killed by that beast's claw. Even his main soul would not have been able to escape, right? What a pity. All the sun crystals added up to only about 10,000. That's too little. Murong Yu sighed regretfully. However, even though there was an insight realm beast hidden there. However, Murong Yu would definitely not give up on the Sun Crystal Mine. Of course, his current strength was not enough to fight against the Insight Realm powerhouse. Therefore, he would still go to the Sun Crystal Mine in the future. But why did that incarnation sealing pearl look at me? Murong Yu thought about that old man's emotionless gaze. It still made his hair stand on end. That old man's main body was definitely stronger than Void Sky, but he did not know if he was stronger than the beast in the Sun Crystal Mine. It would be best if he was stronger than the beast and directly killed it. Otherwise, Murong Yu would still have to face that beast in the future. However, Murong Yu still felt that something was wrong. Now that he had already left the Sun Cave and even the sun, that feeling should not have come from the beast in the Sun Crystal Mine or the Sun Sect. Then, does this feeling come from that old man? Is it the Lin family? Could it be that they can sense the incarnation sealing pearl's movements? Thinking of this, Murong Yu's expression turned ugly. If the other party could really sense the incarnation sealing pearl's movements, then the Lin family would definitely guess that he was the one who killed Lin Zhe. Presumably, it would not be long before the powerhouses of the Lin family arrived in the solar system. The Lin family was not the overlord of a remote star system like the solar system, but a true giant. Killing Murong Yu was as easy as stepping on an ant. Murong Yu had guessed correctly. Previously, because the Lai Guang's secret realm had collapsed, the Lin family did not discover where Lin Zhe died. However, after Murong Yu crushed the incarnation sealing pearl, the Lin family immediately discovered it. At this time, there were already powerhouses heading towards the solar system. Forget it, even if the Lin family is a giant, it is not easy to find a person in the solar system. Moreover, at most, I will just leave the solar system. Murong Yu thought for a while and felt that he was worrying too much. Let's increase my realm first. With 10,000 sun crystals, I should be able to increase my realm by 1 or 2 small realms, right? Muronyu thought to himself as he returned to the Flying Wolf Star. There were many benefits to the sun crystals, and he would not enjoy them alone. At the very least, he had to ensure that Zhao Jiqing and the others had enough sun crystals. After all, their appetite was not as big as Murongyu's, and they did not need too many sun crystals. In fact, the sun crystals given to Zhao Jiqing and the others did not affect Murongyu much. After all, he did not lack those few pieces. This was because in the Purple Sun Grotto Heaven, Zhao Jiqing and the others could not only cultivate, but they could also fight with various beasts and go on adventures. Therefore, although they had not seen each other for a short period of time, the lowest realm among them was already at the Bright World realm. And Zhao Jiqing, who had the highest realm, had already reached the same realm as Murongyu, the 7th stage of the Bright World realm. Murongyu believed that with the sun crystals, the 5 women's strength would increase even faster, and Zhao Jiqing would definitely be able to reach the creation realm before him. After all, they were not lacking in comprehension. This was because there were many creation realm cultivation techniques and combat skills in the Rising Sun Dao Mansion, and the experiences of seniors were everywhere. Moreover, there were many creation realm elixirs and treasures of heaven and earth. Once they broke through to the creation realm, their strength would increase rapidly, and they would be able to reach the half-step insight realm without any obstacles. They could even reach the insight realm. And once they broke through to the half-step insight realm, they would be able to enter the insight realm in the Rising Sun Dao Mansion, and there would be many benefits waiting for them. Murongyu left enough sun crystals for them, and, at the same time, he also left Rong Zhuruo behind. Anyway, he could not deal with Rong Zhuruo's soul now, so he might as well let her live with the 5 women. This was much better than living alone in the Hichu Luoshu. In addition, Murongyu also left some sun crystals for Dongfang Lang and the others. Dongfang Lang's strength had reached the half-step insight realm, and he also had the inheritance of the insight realm. As long as he had enough sun crystals, he would definitely be the first on Murongyu's side to break through to the insight realm. The Dongfang family could be said to be Murongyu's force now, so he would not be stingy to his own people. After settling all this, Murongyu did not immediately cultivate. Instead, he teleported back to the Sun Sect. This was because he and Elder Duanhan were thrown into the Sun Cave after being sealed, but the femme fatale was not thrown in with them. Instead, she was detained in the Sun Sect. When Murongyu found the femme fatale, she was teaching some disciples of the Sun Sect with a bitter expression. She had no choice. She was also sealed by Su Tian, so she could not escape. In the end, she became a slave of the Sun Sect, responsible for teaching disciples. Murongyu immediately took her away. Fortunately, the femme fatale's power was only sealed, just like Elder Duanhan. Although Murongyu could not undo their seals now, he would do so one day. After settling all this, Murongyu began to cultivate in seclusion and began to refine the sun crystals to improve his realm. While Murongyu was cultivating in seclusion, the people of the Lin family had already arrived in the solar system and even took over the Sun Sect. Chapter 2022. Not long after Murongyu took the femme fatale away, 2 youths flew over from afar and appeared above the Sun Sect. "Leader of the Sun Sect, come out," said a young cultivator, looking at the leader of the Sun Sect with disdain. "Who dares to cause a ruckus here?" The Solar Sect's disciples jumped in front of the 2 youths with murderous intent. These Solar Sect members were too arrogant. Did they think they were gods? Although the Sun Sect was the strongest power in the sect, these 2 youths had to have something to rely on if they dared to do this. "Solar Sect, you sure talk big. Do you know who we are?" The other youth sneered. "Gentlemen, please leave now, or you won't be able to leave," an elder from the Solar Sect said with a gloomy expression. "Don't tell me you want to kill me." The young man who had spoken earlier sneered. "You refuse a toast only to be forced to drink a forfeit." The elder sneered. His big hand suddenly reached out and grabbed one of the young men in the air. The youth's eyes flashed with a cold glint before he pointed his finger forward. Boom! That elder didn't even have time to react before his entire body exploded into a cloud of blood mist. Even the people around him saw that his soul had been shattered into dust. This was a 7th-ranked elder. The disciples of the Sun sect turned pale with fright and quickly retreated. These solar sect people are too arrogant, even more so than us. I think we should just kill them. We don't need trash like them to work for us. One youth smiled cruelly. The other nodded and was about to attack. The solar sect's disciples were aghast. Gentlemen, please stop. Suddenly, a shout came from below the solar sect. Then, an expert who looked like a young man walked up. Forefather Void Sky. The solar sect's disciples heaved a sigh of relief after seeing this youth. Forefather Void Sky was a terrifying existence at the nether level. It would be a piece of cake for him to take down these two youths. However, to everyone's surprise, Forefather Void Sky didn't act tough like they expected. He smiled and bowed towards the two youths. May I ask who you two are? What business do you have with my solar sect? First level nether? You can represent the solar sect? Tell your strongest to come out and talk to me. Go to the side. Lin Jiafeng said impatiently. Lin Jiafeng was one of the two youths. The other person was called Lin Jiashu. The two of them were brothers and were both members of the Lin clan. Forefather Void Sky's expression darkened with a murderous glint. However, he didn't show it, because he could see that these two youths were much stronger than him. They were at least at the 2nd level of the Insight realm. Wouldn't killing him be like playing around? Gentlemen, I'm one of the two ancestors of the solar sect, so I can represent the solar sect. Moreover, my senior apprentice brother is in seclusion, so I am in charge of everything in the Sun sect. Void Sky suppressed the anger in his heart and said in a deep voice. However, his voice also became cold. Lin Jiafeng glanced at Void Sky with disdain. Although you're a bit weak, it doesn't matter. While speaking, Lin Jiafeng and Lin Jiashu stepped down. After a while, they arrived at the main hall of the solar sect. Lin Jiafeng directly sat on the seat of the solar sect's leader. Because the previous solar sect's leader had the Sun Sutra, the solar sect had been without a leader for many years. You want to become the leader of the solar sect? Sure, you have to find the Sun Sutra first. It was because of this that the solar sect had been without a leader. Seeing Lin Jiafeng directly sit in his original seat, Ancestor Void Sky's anger surged. However, he wasn't a fool. He didn't act out and pretended he didn't see it. Who told Lin Jiafeng and Lin Jiashu to be stronger than him? Void Sky, right? Immediately call all the leaders of the upper-level forces in the solar system here. I have something to say. If they don't want to come, just say that they will bear the consequences. Lin Jiafeng waved his hand and was about to dismiss Forefather Void Sky. Forefather Void Sky had a belly full of anger, but he still suppressed it and said, May I know who you two are? I can at least give you an explanation. Milky Way Star Field, Lin family. Lin Jiashu glanced at Void Sky and sneered. How could he not know what Void Sky was thinking? He didn't want to give others an explanation. He just wanted an explanation. Milky Way Star Field, Lin family? Void Sky's heart trembled, and he immediately left. Outside the solar star, on a certain origin planet. Senior brother, are those two people really from the Lin family? Why would a colossus like the Lin family take a fancy to our solar system? The solar system is only a remote star system. The Lin family shouldn't take a fancy to it. Void Sky said gloomily. When he thought of the colossus of the Lin family, he couldn't help but feel a chill down his spine. An existence of that level could casually send out a powerhouse to destroy the solar system. In front of Forefather Void Sky, an illusory figure pondered for a moment and said, The Lin family shouldn't be an opponent of our solar system. They should have come here for a reason. You just have to try your best to satisfy their request. At the same time, don't get into a conflict with them. We are not a match for the Lin family. Su Tian nodded, and then he left. Not long after, the leaders of the lunar sect, Dongfang family, and other forces were all summoned to the Sun sect. However, Dongfang Lang didn't go. Instead, he sent a rank 9 elder as a representative. This was because Dongfang Lang had reached the final step of breaking through to the insight realm and couldn't leave. Morong Yu, who was still cultivating, didn't know all of this. After many days of cultivation and devouring close to 2,000 sun crystals, Morong Yu finally broke through to the Bright World Realm Rank 8. Even Morong Yu himself was afraid of this big eater. However, after breaking through, it was very terrifying. Originally, Morong Yu's strength was comparable to the Creation Realm Rank 8. Now that he had reached the Bright World Realm Rank 8, his strength was comparable to the Creation Realm Rank 9 and even half a step into the Insight Realm. However, Morong Yu's current enemies were already at the Insight Realm. They were 2 major realms higher than him. After consolidating his cultivation, Morong Yu began to receive information from the outside world. After receiving it, his face darkened. The Lin family had come and were looking for him throughout the solar system. Moreover, the other party had already locked onto the Sun Cave. At that time, there weren't many people in the Sun Cave. Therefore, the Lin family had already suspected Morong Yu and Elder Duanhan. In fact, they suspected Elder Duanhan more. After all, when Lin Zhe died, Morong Yu's realm was too low. Only Elder Duanhan had the strength to kill him. However, with the relationship between Morong Yu and Elder Duanhan, the Lin family probably hated him. At that moment, the Lin family had already entered the Sun Cave to look for Morong Yu and Elder Duanhan. Moreover, they were all guessing that the reason why he used the incarnation sealing bead was because he had encountered danger in the Sun Cave. Morong Yu had learned all of this from his doppelganger and the Dongfang family. Because one was a clone and the other was a slave, Morong Yu knew very well. With the Lin family's ability, I'm afraid they will soon suspect me. They definitely won't believe that I died in the Sun Cave. Moreover, if the Lin family's peerless powerhouses come, will they discover the Sun Crystal Mine? Morong Yu pondered with a gloomy expression. Alexander, the Lin family was a colossus in the Milky Way star field. Morong Yu didn't know what kind of abilities a force of this level had. Would they discover his relationship with the Dongfang family? Would they find out that he came from the Holy Realm? If he discovered the Holy Realm, would the Lin family use the Holy Realm to threaten him? Strength, I'm still not strong enough. At that moment, Morong Yu once again felt his insignificance. The other party had casually sent 2 people who were at the Netherworld Realm, and he was only at the Bright World Realm. If the Lin family really used the Holy Realm to threaten Morong Yu wouldn't be able to resist at all. In that case, I'll continue to cultivate. Cultivate to the Bright World Realm Level 9, and even break through to the Creation Realm. Morong Yu made up his mind and decided to continue cultivating. Originally, he didn't want to continue breaking through after breaking through. He wanted to experience a period of time before breaking through to the Bright World Realm Level 9, and then break through to the Creation Realm in one fell swoop. However, the pressure was too great now, and Morong Yu didn't have much time. The stronger he was, the bigger Morong Yu's appetite was. From the Bright World Realm Level 7 to the Bright World Realm Level 8, Morong Yu refined 2,000 sun crystals. From the Bright World Realm Level 8 to the Bright World Realm Level 9, Morong Yu refined 5,000 sun crystals and still hadn't broken through. 7,000 sun crystals had already been consumed. This was also Morong Yu's entire fortune. After all, he had only obtained about 10,000 sun crystals, and 3,000 of them had already been given to Zhao Jiqing, Dongfang Lang, and the others. Peak of the Creation Realm Level 8. This was Morong Yu's current realm and strength. If he wanted to break through, Morong Yu estimated that he would need at least 3,000 sun crystals. Do I have to return to the Sun Crystal Mine? Morong Yu pondered for a while and finally decided to make a trip back. Without the sun crystals, it would definitely take a long time for him to break through to the Bright World Realm Level 9. Time waits for no man. Thus, Morong Yu activated the Hichu Luoshu's teleportation and directly teleported to the Sun Cave instead of the Sun Crystal Mine. The sun fire in the sun crystal mine was already very weak, so the teleportation jade slip could also be placed there. Murong Yu had placed a lot of them back then, but perhaps because the sealing bead had been destroyed in the battle with the sun crystal beast, Murong Yu could no longer sense them. Thus, he could only go down again. Chapter 2023. However, with Murong Yu's current speed, it wouldn't take long for him to reach the sun crystal mine. Therefore, when he appeared in the sun cavern, he concealed himself and shot straight down. Originally, he could jump down directly, but the speed of jumping down was not as fast as flying down. The reason why he concealed himself was because he knew that Lin Jiashu and the others were still in the sun cave. However, he didn't know exactly where the two of them were. Therefore, he still concealed himself as a precaution. His body descended rapidly because Murong Yu's goal was the sun crystal mine, so he didn't stop at all. However, after descending for a while, he stopped. That was because he saw a familiar face, Li Jiang. At that moment, Li Jiang was slowly descending with the other two level 8 elders. However, their speed was too slow, so slow that it made one's hair stand on end. Why did Murong Yu stop? That was because Li Jiang was his sworn enemy, and he had almost killed him the last time. They were destined to fight to the death. After breaking through, Murong Yu's strength was comparable to a level 9 creation realm, or even a half step into the insight realm. Therefore, he wanted to kill Li Jiang. If Li Jiang hadn't appeared in the sun sect, Murong Yu might not have attacked, even if he saw him. However, in the sun cave, even if Li Jiang died, no one would suspect anything. In fact, even if Li Jiang died, no one would know. However, although Murong Yu's strength was comparable to a level 9 creation realm, Li Jiang wasn't weak either. However, Li Jiang wasn't weak either. If Murong Yu couldn't kill him quickly, it'd be difficult for him to kill Li Jiang. After thinking for a moment, Murong Yu decided to attack. Soul Storm. Murong Yu stealthily approached and launched a soul attack, launching a sneak attack. Thud! Thud! Almost at the same time that Murong Yu launched his soul attack, Li Jiang's two subordinates, the two level 8 elders of the Sun sect, collapsed without any signs of life. This place was already quite deep, and the sun fire was already very terrifying. Therefore, when the two elders died, they were burned to ashes in the blink of an eye. Even Li Jiang did not have time to react. It was only then that Li Jiang reacted. Immediately, all the hair on his body stood on end, as if his hair was standing on end. At the same time, he raised his strength to the limit as he looked around in bewilderment. After Murong Yu killed the two rank 8 elders, he did not immediately attack Li Jiang. Instead, he went into hiding. At this moment, after seeing Li Jiang's appearance in the dark, he could not help but feel relieved. It was obvious that this fellow did not know that someone had killed his two subordinates. Instead, he thought that they had been killed by the dangers of the Sun Cave. Since that was the case, things would be easier. After that, Murong Yu silently observed Li Jiang from nearby. Li Jiang was also very vigilant, as he used Li Jiang to protect himself. He didn't move at all. Only after 2 hours did Li Jiang heave a sigh of relief. He had not been attacked for so long, so he should be safe. However, right at that moment, Murong Yu noticed a slight change in his expression. Then, Li Jiang spread out his body and walked deeper into the cave. He's still going down? Could it be that he was summoned by Su Tian? Murong Yu was a little surprised. However, the deeper Li Jiang went, the faster he would die. When he reached his limit, Murong Yu did not use much strength at all. He only needed to casually attack, and Li Jiang would die without a burial place. Therefore, he followed Li Jiang and slowly flew over. However, Li Jiang's speed was really too slow, like a snail. There were many times when Murong Yu wanted to help Li Jiang increase his speed. His speed became slower and slower. In the end, Li Jiang needed to think before taking a step. Presumably, he had reached his limit. Now's the time. Murong Yu sneered in his heart as he approached. At this moment, Li Jiang had used all his strength to defend. As long as Murong Yu attacked, Li Jiang would not have any extra strength to defend. Once he defended, he would not be able to withstand the sun fire and would be burned to ashes. Chi! The weapon fragment turned into a stream of light and shattered a large amount of sun fire. It quickly slashed towards Li Jiang with lightning speed. At this moment, Li Jiang's heart was directly enveloped by an extremely strong aura of death. Immediately, he let out a loud roar, and a powerful hand formed. Then, he threw a punch at the weapon fragment. Moronyu was very surprised, because even if Li Jiang attacked, his defense was not affected. This old bastard was prepared. Moronyu sneered in his heart, but his soul attack had already blasted out. So what if Li Jiang was prepared? He still could not escape death today. Rumble. Li Jiang's strength was much stronger than an ordinary Fortune Realm rank 9, so he blasted the weapon fragment away with one punch. However, the giant hand of power that he had conjured was also shattered. At this moment, Muronyu's soul attack had already reached him. Soul attack. Li Jiang's expression changed drastically. Immediately, an extremely terrifying power surged into his soul attack and protected his soul. However, because he had mobilized too much power, it affected his defense. He was almost burned to death by the solar fire. However, Li Jiang still managed to withstand the sun fire attack and the soul attack at the same time. Nevertheless, even so, his soul was almost shaken to the point of dispersing. Muronyu's expression was a little ugly because Li Jiang was much harder to kill than he had imagined. "Who's sneaking up on me?" Li Jiang shouted and took a step forward, wanting to rush up. The higher he went, the more benefits he would have. That was because the sun fire was too terrifying. Could it be Moronyu? I heard that Moronyu is a soul saint. Li Jiang suddenly thought of Moronyu. Trying to escape? Seeing that Li Jiang wanted to escape, how could Moronyu allow him to? He took a step forward and appeared in front of Li Jiang. At the same time, he threw a punch at him. At the same time, his soul attack violently attacked once again. Moreover, this time, it was not just one attack, but an endless stream of attacks. Boom! Li Jiang and Moronyu were both pushed back. Moronyu was pushed back a little further. However, he had also successfully stopped Li Jiang from escaping upwards and suppressed him. His soul attack made Li Jiang even more flustered. After a round of attacks, Moronyu realized that Li Jiang's strength was slightly stronger than his. He was only slightly stronger. He could completely exhaust Li Jiang to death. Therefore, Li Jiang was in for tragedy. He was attacked by both Moronyu and the Sunfire. In a short period of time, his strength was greatly depleted. If this continued, it would not take long for him to exhaust his strength and be killed by either the Sunfire or Moronyu. Moronyu, my master, and the powerhouses of the Lin family are nearby looking for you. If I ask them for help, do you think you can escape from here? Li Jiang suddenly said with a cold smile. Moronyu did not say a word, nor did he show himself. There was no need for that at all. Moreover, invisibility was very beneficial to him. Li Jiang did not know where he would attack next. Chi! Suddenly, a bolt of lightning appeared out of thin air. Then, it smashed through the void and slammed into Li Jiang. Li Jiang sneered and reached out his hand to grab it. However, just as he grabbed the bolt of lightning, a dazzling bolt of lightning shot out from his palm. Boom! His palm was directly shattered into fine powder. That bolt of lightning directly enveloped his entire body. At this moment, Li Jiang could not help but tremble. A numb feeling instantly enveloped his entire body. Even his thoughts were paralyzed. Die! At this moment, Moronyu unleashed his most violent attack. A punch sent Li Jiang flying. His soul attack directly blasted into the space of Li Jiang's spiritual lake, shattering the power entrenched in his soul space. Then it directly slashed his soul. Whoosh! The fragments of the weapon split Li Jiang's body into two halves. With just this attack, Li Jiang was beaten half to death. Moreover, he still had the Sunfire. Li Jiang was about to be devoured by the Sunfire. However, at this moment, a sense of danger suddenly appeared in Moronyu's mind. Without any hesitation, Moronyu immediately rushed into the Hichu Luo Shu. The moment he entered the Hichu Luo Shu, an illusory figure appeared above Li Jiang. At the same time, an extremely terrifying aura spread out in all directions. It was the illusory sky illusion. "Master, save me." Seeing the illusory sky illusion, Li Jiang, who was about to die, hurriedly cried for help. Su Tian frowned slightly, but he still reached out to grab Li Jiang. As expected of a powerful existence at the first level of the Netherworld realm, the Sunfire here had no effect on him at all. Soon, with his intervention, Li Jiang's shattered body was restored. However, Li Jiang's soul had been severely injured. It would be impossible for him to recover without a certain amount of time. At this moment, if Morong Yu used another soul attack, Li Jiang would definitely die. However, Morong Yu probably already loved to run away, right? How would he dare to attack? Li Jiang and Su Tian were the same. However, was this really the case? At this moment, a soul attack suddenly took shape. Then, before Su Tian could react, it had already bombarded Li Jiang's soul. Li Jiang immediately let out a miserable scream. Then his entire soul was shattered. Li Jiang was dead. After dying, Li Jiang's face was still filled with shock. He really didn't think that with Su Tian beside him, Morong Yu would actually dare to attack and even kill him. Even Su Tian was shocked and couldn't react for a while. "If I want to kill someone, even the heavens won't be able to protect them. Old thief Su Tian, wash your neck and wait for me to come and take your dog head." Morong Yu's murderous voice came from afar and clearly sounded in Su Tian's ears. You're tuning in to the Warrior Lore YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.